This is all I need. This is it.
No, I said I couldn't find you.
Oh, find me. No, I was in the room. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Get into the courthouse, look these plans up.
Yeah.
I did send one to, I found one that called it. They were
Yeah.
fried country. One that had, that said that these owners were responsible to maintain it.
Okay, good.
I think I sent it to you both, like you and Charity.
Okay.
I can double check. And there was one, I think it was the same plan that actually did have it labeled as a detention basin.
Yeah, we found a couple of different that called it a basin. We could not find any like details for what the grading was or.
Yeah, there's
anything
one that
like
had contours, but it was existing contours.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fred.
Used.
Yeah,
So
so you'd almost have to go with that's what it was, I guess, and
yeah, possibly.
get it back to.
Yeah,
them.
it could have been something that they just slapped the outlet structure on it.
Yeah, they didn't really grade it much.
What's labeled?
Hmm?
Yeah.
Paste.
Yeah, when you look at that culvert, you wouldn't normally put those.
Hey.
Hold on, I was trying to pull back a little bit of water, but when you have it on a water course like that, you don't have to do a whole lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you get a chance, I want to still get in there. Definitely might go in, they have something on RCS. Like it's for planners, but it's like money. Guess it'd be better to have it before that.
How you doing?
Charity's been going in
Yeah,
for her
keep busy.
landscape architect credits on Wednesday. I don't know, a couple days a month where they do their webinars that you sit and watch, but you have to watch them there. Like, I don't know why you can't just watch them at home. It seems like it'd be a lot easier, but
Sure you watched them.
Okay.
yeah, I guess.
I'm not gonna give those credits out too easily.
The engineers ones are easier. to
You've
get than
earned
landscape
that.
architect
Yeah.
ones.
They have quizzes
Oh, I'm
together.
sorry. Yes.
Yeah, for the little online ones.
Gotcha.
I gotta probably start checking on that too.
I go to the PSATs conference in Manola, and then I usually
Like
do the
your
one in
neighbors are
person.
out in force.
And that's enough to get your credits for.
And there's
the-
some other
For the
developers
you
and
get
stuff
6
here,
each
but
time, so you get.
general public, we don't typically see.
And freebies that come from ASCE, but I'm pretty much gone through everything I was interested in.
Yeah.
Good, good. Bethany's 10, Andrew's 7,
A year or two ago.
growing like crazy.
I went through them and now.
Richard's still working down in Maryland.
I couldn't even.
Yeah,
sit
he's
through
still a
that.
firefighter paramedic down in Maryland.
No.
No, I still keep my
I
certification
have
up
a
to date,
Maryland
but
license. so I
I'm
have to take
doing
one
municipal
specific
side,
Maryland,
keeping
like
track of
ethics one.
expense, wildlife
That
one.
and Delaware
I'm
was
still a
easy,
member of
but
East
Maryland, which one was it?
But because
Maryland was
Richard,
easy.
when we're home, either I'm going as
I don't
the,
think they
as
want
emergency management, or
Oh,
he's
really?
going, and I'm keeping the
Okay.
case.
they
So
have to read
It
their
is what it
ethics
is.
thing and take
I
a
don't
test
mind
on
it.
that.
most
Just to get a
days, I
reciprocity
go to all the
license.
major incidents anyways, so.
I haven't used either of them.
Just
I
starting
had a
now.
project that was coming up that I was gonna use in Maryland, and I think.
I will
it
do
did
that.
back around when I used it.
2, Bethy's 10 and Andrew's 7.
But I've had it
Yeah.
probably
Yeah, yeah. So Andrew is the reason I left CTC.
Yeah, that's about.
When I
I
was
thought about trying to
teaching
Delaware
full
one,
time.
or occasionally.
It was just too
stuff
much
to do
doing all,
comes
you
up.
know, all the kids and then all my, then my own kids.
At this point, I don't know.
So,
When I first started out, I had to actually one more
but
time
yeah,
do that.
yeah, don't lose your seat. I will do that. It was good to see you.
Yeah, it doesn't quite, I don't quite find it. much time now.
Hey, I know that lady.
Not nothing I've ever used.
No. Looks like.
I need to unmute. Tom, can you just confirm you can hear us and speak so that we can make sure we can hear you?
I can see and hear you.
Wonderful, thank you.
we have, is Mr. Bennett online?
Tom can hear, Tom can speak. Holy smoking buns. Sometime.
Hold the, gotta fix this computer.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you came in since I last announced it, if you're planning to speak to the board this evening and have not already done so, please sign in on the sheet up at the front table.
And I'm working on getting a new sheet, so
Oh,
hold,
you need another
hold
one?
safe there. Yeah, that's what I was trying to print.
Absolutely.
Looks like it's getting full. I just can't get there from here. Sad.
Do we have any more chairs or?
They're all the ones that are out of the closet are out already.
Right.
All right. What's today? March what? 16th.
Hey, Cindy,
Sign-in sheet is full.
I'm getting there.
We're getting there. Yep. One moment. Get there? Okay. Get some more chairs out of the closet.
do you want?
Should have had it at the school.
Yeah, we should have.
Going off that fixed shoulder.
Over the occupancy limit.
You were laughing at me for the chairs.
It's all my fault.
All right, you guys ready? Mr. Weaver? Ms. Whites, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Weaver?
I have some.
Mr. Weaver, ready? You ready? Good evening. I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. Tonight's meeting has been advertised to be held in person and online using Zoom with login and call-in information. Tonight's video and audio is being recorded. For tonight's meeting, Robert's rules will still apply, and the meeting will be run by the chairman, who will be assisted by an employee managing the Zoom site. During the meeting, in order to offer comment, you must be first recognized by the chairman. For people utilizing Zoom, you will need to use the chat function to be recognized. Text your name and address, and your request to speak will then be passed from staff to the chairman to be recognized. Once recognized by the chairman, unmute your microphone. After speaking, please mute your microphone. East Hempfield Township public comment rules will apply for all public comment. You must be a resident or a business owner in the township to speak. You must identify yourself by name and address before speaking and sign the guest log for meeting minute purposes, or follow the chat procedure previously discussed for Zoom attendance. Comment will be limited to 3 minutes and must be about the agenda item being discussed. with the exception of public comment for non-agenda items. No action will be taken on any non-agenda items of a non-emergency nature during public comment. All comments should be directed to the board. And we will now move on to our first agenda item. Please rise, join me for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. Chairman and friends, during the moment, I would think you might want to consider that 77 years ago today, the United States declared the island of Iwo Jima secure after 21 days of very difficult combat with 19,200 casualties, 6,800 fatalities. Thank you.
And now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So up first tonight, we do have a public hearing, and I'm going to be turning things over to our solicitor here shortly. But I'm going to ask everybody here in the audience who's going to be speaking to, number one, please be respectful when you speak and you ask questions and make your comments. Number two, we have a large audience here tonight. If someone else has made the same comment that you're going to make, please hold that comment. And again, we're going to ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Solicitor Mrs. Pfeiffer.
Okay, thank you. So this is a public hearing this evening to take comments and presentations, both from the petitioner who has submitted the petition, but also anyone who is in attendance who's interested either in favor or opposed to the proposed petition. This is a petition to rezone certain tracts of land to the enterprise zone. It's also a petition to amend certain requirements in the zoning ordinance. I will note for the record that notice of tonight's hearing was properly advertised. When we begin the hearing, we'll have the petitioner and its counsel come forward and make their presentation and give us an explanation for the reasons for the request and the proposed ordinance. They will then be subject to questions from members of the board. After the board has had an opportunity to ask their questions, the board will then open the hearing to the public to receive comment. This is an opportunity for the public to ask questions to the petitioner if they so desire, and also to offer comments. As the chair has indicated, we will be limiting the comment period to 3 minutes each. After all of the public comment has been received, the board will close the hearing, and then the board will decide whether they wish to take action on the proposed ordinance tonight. If any changes are made to the proposed ordinance as a result of the comments received during the hearing, the ordinance must be referred again to the planning commissions, and a subsequent public hearing would be held before the board. I will note, though, that the board does not need to take action on the ordinance tonight if it desires. It has 60 days from the last date of advertising to take action. Okay, so those are the ground rules. We'll have the petitioner come forward.
Good evening. My name is Esh McCombie. I'm an attorney with McNeese, Wallace & Merrick. We have an office at 570 Loush Lane in Lancaster. We represent PDC Northeast, LPIV, LLC, and Pantone Development Company. Here with me this evening are Ian McDonald and Joe Peters from Pantone, Judd Dayton from Pantone, which is the civil engineer, and Jared Neal with Traffic Planning and Design, which is the traffic engineer. The purpose for tonight's hearing is to discuss our request to extend the enterprise district from the southern quadrant of 283 Spooky Nook interchange to include the western quadrant of the interchange. This will allow for infill development consistent with that, what is already permitted along Spooky Nook Road in the southern side of 283. It will permit by conditional use development of a mid-sized warehouse or distribution center in an area already designated for growth. In addition, the use will alleviate delivery delays, create jobs, increase the tax base, and maybe most importantly, allow traffic improvements along the roadway and at the interchange that are currently overburdened. Of course, we understand that not all residents are in favor of change. So the applicant has made efforts to meet with the most proximate neighbors and others in the area to alleviate their concerns and listen to what they have to say. In addition, the applicant is committed to working with the township and neighbors throughout the development process. So the lineup for tonight is, first I'll give an overview, then Ian will come up and provide a little background on Pantone. Jared will discuss traffic and road and interchange improvements, and then Judd will bring us home, kind of walking everybody through the site plan. When we have a moment on the computer screen, if you could please pull up the first page of the PDF. That's a third page. I'm looking for thank you, that one. The property is 3 parcels consisting of approximately 40 acres. That's generally the teal and olive areas that you see here. It's located in the far western portion of the township, very near the boundaries of Raffo and West Hempfield Townships. It's at the western quadrant of 283 and Spooky Nook Road at the interchange. 283 and agricultural land is generally to the north of the property. Up here to the south, you have residents, the railroad, agricultural land in West Hempfield Township. To the west is Chickies Creek, along with an industrial site also located in Raffo Township, or in Raffo Township, excuse me. And then to the east is a long strip of enterprise district that actually runs the entire length of 283 all the way down to the southeastern boundary of the township. So in other words, the property is currently the missing length in the enterprise district chain that runs almost the entire length of 283. And that zoning district, enterprise district, permits industrial uses along the southern side of 283. Currently, the eastern portion, that olive portion that I mentioned, I guess on this screen it looks a little more yellow, is zoned Community Business Center. Community Business Center permits smaller warehouses by right, but not the size that's proposed for the property. It also permits many commercial and retail uses that are traffic creators, but that are generally not significant enough to allow a developer to come in and make real changes to Spooky Nook Road or the interchange itself, given the cost of those types of improvements. The majority of the property, the teal section here, is in the ag holding, which is not the same as the agricultural district. You see on the map there, that pink magenta is agricultural. The ag holding is the teal below it. Per the zoning ordinance, the ag holding zone represents staged future growth areas of the township for such time as the township determines there is a need to rezone them to a more intensive use. And that is generally consistent with the comprehensive plan and the fact that the property is in a designated urban growth area, which is intended for a more dense and intense mix of uses. With respect to the ordinance itself, if you could please go to the next page. We propose to rezone the property to enterprise, as I had mentioned, which would permit development of the proposed warehouse and distribution center. We also propose adding frontage and access standards for industrial uses in the enterprise zone. Currently, the ordinance requires access drives to connect directly to arterial or collector streets, which are constructed to handle heavier traffic. That would be unsafe in this case because that would be shooting you right out at the interchange. And so while proximity to interchanges is important when we're talking about these types of uses, we want to make sure that we're doing it in a safe way. And so the changes that we've proposed to the ordinance to address that inconsistency are to allow access onto a street other than an arterial road or collector if, one, the property is within a half mile of a grade separated interchange of a limited access arterial highway, such as 283. Two, fronts on a designated arterial or collector street. again, 283 or Spooky Nook. 3, but for safety reasons cannot use that frontage for access. And finally, 4, development will include improving the other street to the standards for collector streets. So in this case, we would be coming out onto Chickies, but where we do, we would improve it to the same standards that you have in your ordinance for arterial roads. The narrative includes several points about why the proposed amendment and concept plan are consistent with good planning for the area and the township and counties, development principles and goals as set forth in the comp plans. For those reasons and others, LCPC recommended approval of the amendment by memorandum dated February 15, 2022. And the Township's Planning Commission also recommended approval by letter dated February 10, 2022. So before we ask the board to take action on the amendment, I'd like to hand the meeting off to the rest of our team to provide a few more details and answer any questions that you folks might have. Dean, come on up.
My name's Ian McDonald. I'm with Pantone Development Company. Just want to say thank everybody for that. Thank you for your time today. Appreciate your time and consideration on our request for this rezoning. Pantone Development Company is about a 40-year-old, largely industrial developer. It's warehouse distribution, center development, some office in that asset class as well. It's been operating for 40 years, and it's institutional. So we have offices, we operate in US, Canada, and Europe. We build a product that stands the test of time. Class A, tilt up. We want these buildings to look like an office, and I've officed in these buildings before. So it's one that we want to be part of the community. We want to have look beautiful, whether it's today or 30 years from today. You know, for the most part, we're here because of 3 reasons. And it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. You know, COVID hit and we ran out of essentially toilet paper, and we ran out of other products, and we've run out of every single other product, and we hear about it in the news, and it's the first time, I think, really in the news. The supply chain has been something that's like its vitality to the US economy has been exemplified through the fact that we cannot buy products that we need. And so what's happening is a lot of products are moving, and what companies are creating is what's called safety stock. They want to be able to serve their clients. They want to be able to deliver goods. And so they have to have that stock available to make that happen. And that way we don't run out of the products that we need in the grocery store, online, right? And that really leads to number 2 is consumption habits. So folks stopped buying as much products at retail stores. They quit driving to retail centers, to malls. And what they started doing was buying on a click, and you know, they want their product in a day, 2 days, 3 days. And what that does is it puts pressure on the supply chain system where you need products tomorrow. And so this isn't unique to this area. It's happening nationally, and it's happening to everybody. And then third, what you're seeing is a lot of manufacturing come back to the United States. And what it needs is it needs support for those products and goods that were normally overseas. You hear about Intel opening up plants, the first chip plant, and I can't remember how long, in Ohio, the first new steel factory in Arkansas. And all of that's repatriating back to the US. And so what we're here today because we support that. And what we're here today is because this area of the country, 23, 81, 83, from Lancaster to Harrisburg really serves, you can serve 60% of the US and 50% of Canada from this area of the world. You can deliver goods to a broad range of folks. And what we're seeing right now is a lack of supply. And you see a ton of demand. And I think we're at historically low, you know, vacancy rates. You know, moving on to this particular site is you know, what we try to target is locations near highways. You know, at the end of the day, I don't want a site a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles down the road where you see traffic mixing with every other type of use. I want it to stay on those main arteries where goods flow, and goods flow in at these on the interstate system. right? And so where we're at today is we are right at the interchange. We have high visibility. We would like to build a great product. And what we care about is traffic. So what we care about is the ability for trucks to get to the site, for employees to get to the site, for the employees to work. And we care about, that the traffic functions properly. Because that's what it's all about. That's why we're here today. And at the end of the day, we met with staff and surprised, lo and behold, what we learned was that there's a traffic problem at this intersection. And so, whether it's by grace of God that this is the asset class that is, doing well, we are a lower impact asset class in terms of traffic, but it's still important. But we can absorb through our size the type of traffic improvements that are needed to make this intersection functional. And so what we're proposing today is, along with our rezoning, is what we would do. And Jared's going to talk about this in greater detail because he knows this much better than I do, right? Is we're going to propose traffic improvements to that intersection to make sure that it functions properly so that our development is not a burden on your community. So thank you. With that, I'll hand it over to Jared.
Mr. O'Neill, when you speak, can you speak into the microphone? Some of the residents are having a little trouble hearing in the back.
You can take it out of the stand if that's helpful.
Is that all right? Okay. Could we slide to the first exhibit in the package there? Good evening. My name is Jared Neal with Traffic Planning and Design, traffic engineer for the project, as Ian indicated. As part of the conditional use application, we had prepared a traffic study to go along with the package. And essentially, it's just to get an understanding of first how the traffic operates in this corridor, as well as what improvements may be needed to bring it back to a level of service or a function that's acceptable. But before we get into the study, I just wanted to give a little bit of background about what we've seen in this area. So I've been working on this corridor for probably over 10 years now with various different projects, some mixed use developments, a lot of mixed use developments. Basically through the variety of different projects we've worked on, we've really seen the same problems over and over again. So we've met with township staff on a number of different occasions. Some of those projects were off the area here, farther north of 283. Some of those were the subject tract that we're talking about tonight. So some of those previous projects that we've talked about, the trip generation was substantially greater. So one thing that Ian had indicated was one of the values of this type of use is the lower impact trip generation that's developed from it. Some of those previous projects that I've looked at had generated trips in the neighborhood of a factor of 10, so 10 times what this project is looking at. The common theme with each of those was the traffic issues at the interchange. And a lot of the projects that didn't happen were a result of the cost to facilitate some type of improvement here to mitigate the problems that weren't necessarily created by the proposed development, but that are in existing conditions and that are still in existing conditions today. So what are those issues? So one was the interchange, and we'll walk through the issues there. So really, each time that I've looked at this over the years, we've noted that traffic signals were warranted at both of the interchanges. There's poor level of service, failing levels of service, which is what our traffic study shows today. Roadway realignment problems, which make it very difficult to implement some of the improvements that we would like to put together. And the need for turn lanes, which because of the alignment and the configuration of the interchange just aren't possible.
aside from the interchange, another thing that Ian had indicated was access. A lot of the mixed-use developments or retail developments, they want direct, convenient access to the state route or as close to that interchange as possible. And because of the existing queue issues that are out there, level of service issues, it's just not possible. We can't go to PennDOT and ask for an access point that's 150 feet away from the interchange. There's queues that are backing up there. It's not something that could really be implemented. The product that we have today, and with the improvements that are being presented, can shift those access points off of the main Spooky Nook Road over to Chickies, certainly with some improvements done to that road, but it's going to allow those driveways to be pushed away from the interchange for safe and convenient access. So all this information that I've gained over the years of looking at this corridor, we're put together into this study. And really the biggest change here is one thing that Ian had indicated was the product is this type of use is doing well now, and it can afford to implement some of these improvements, but also it's a lower trip gen. So being, like I had indicated, the other projects were essentially, some of them 10 times the trips that we're seeing with this one, just yields for a better product that we can deliver, and the project can essentially pencil. So really in short here, the results of our study show that, that there's less traffic and we have the ability to fix some of the existing issues. So I think if I may, maybe I'll just show up here, I'm sorry. So if I may, just right here. So this is showing kind of this, the existing interchange, and you can see how they're really offset and off aligned. If we were to zoom in, what you see is to try to implement a traffic signal there is going to be extremely difficult. The offset approaches from the just the way that they're aligned. So as part of this project, we would look at really reconfiguring these interchanges, implementing traffic signals, adding turn lanes, right turn lanes where we can. It's required by the analysis, and really that becomes part of the project and is also part of what we have laid out as in the traffic study. That study was submitted to the township for review. I think we've submitted 3 different times to just make some changes, tweaks that the township engineer had recommended. And we submitted on the 4th of this month, and we're down to just a few minor things that we feel we've adequately addressed and don't see any issue with what we've proposed here.
Jared, as a point of clarification, so when you do a study like that, you are considering the existing uses that are along Spooky Nook and 283 that are contributing to this traffic and the proposed use, and then if there are any other proposed uses on the books, are those all part of the study that you're talking about?
Yeah, certainly. And as some of those initial meetings, we spoke with township staff to just get a sense of what else is happening in the municipality. So that was incorporated into our analysis as well. Also, part of that becomes just a standard growth factor that we add on, which is just based on historical data based from PennDOT.
So do you want to come up? And if you could please go to the 3rd slide in the PDF. Thank you.
Thank you. Judd Dayton from Pantone. So this is, thank you. This is the concept that is driving the application this evening. Pantone would love to construct 400,000 square feet of warehouse on the site. As you look at this particular property, 283 runs across the top of the property. Spooky Nook Road is along the right-hand side as you look at the plan. South Chickies Road comes off of Spooky Nook, wraps down around the south side, the bottom of the page. And Chickies Creek is pretty much the boundary. The floodplain for Chickies Creek is the boundary on the left-hand side of the sheet. The truck court and parking would be on the upper side of that building, so it would be along 283. There would not be truck courts at this point on the south side. The bottom side that would point to the residences. We're looking at 2 access points. The one closest to Spooky Nook is intended for truck traffic. The general concept is to keep the trucks as close to Spooky Nook and the interchange as possible. And we have a secondary auto entrance and emergency access
proposed there on the left-hand side. Throwing auto parking at each end of the building and some trailer storage on the right-hand side. Obviously, we would need to do full design for erosion control and stormwater management. At this point, we're anticipating some stormwater management somewhere along Spooky Nook Road, and the bulk of it also being between the development and Chickies Creek. I think with that, we can open up to any questions from the board.
I'll start. You had mentioned you were looking at some improvements. Can you be a little more specific in what some of those would be?
Meaning the traffic improvements?
Correct.
Yeah, so to get into a little bit more detail here into the study, we had studied Chickies Road and Spooky Nook, and both of the interchange ramps, and then our site driveways. So I'll start with down at Chickies Road and Spooky Nook. So essentially there, what we're looking at is adding a dedicated right turn lane, which will pull the traffic off of, when you're heading southbound, pull the traffic off of the through lane, and then allow for a smoother movement right onto Chickies and allow the trucks to enter into the site. As we shift north and move to the first interchange, what we're proposing there, I think the basis of the improvement is going to be a traffic light. And in order to get that done, the ramps need to align. So we have a through movement, if someone accidentally gets on, moves off, but also just kind of cleaning up that access point to reduce lost time of the traffic signals. And then again, another right turn lane heading northbound on Spooky Nook Road, right turn lane to head onto the on-ramp. Again, pushing further.
So so I'm clear on that. So we're looking at the interchange on the south side of 283.
Correct.
We're looking at a right turn lane into South Chickies Road, and we're looking at a right turn lane onto 283 East.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And a traffic light at that.
The traffic light
Interchange.
at that interchange.
Okay.
And then again, if we move to the other side of 283, really the same configuration, looking to clean up the existing alignment to allow for more efficient traffic signal operations, as well as adding a right turn lane there, simply to add slightly more capacity to the intersection to reduce the levels of service. With those improvements, we're bringing the existing failing intersection level of service, does operate at level of service F, down to a B or C, depending on what the peak hour analysis was. But those are overall intersection level of service, which are substantially improved over existing conditions.
Thank you. One other question I have, looking at the site plan, and I think when this was introduced to us, I don't know, maybe a year or so ago, it looked like the intention was to develop the whole site. Has there been any thought given to purchasing or acquiring those residential properties?
There has been. So I reached out to each one of the owners. I would say I heard back from all but one. We reached an agreement with 4. 2, one wouldn't sell, and one we couldn't get a hold of. And ultimately, I think ideally for us, we would have preferred to be able to buy them all out. And we offered, I think, what most would say generous prices. But we need to have them all in order to make it work, simply because it was a function of we could either afford the offsite improvements or we could afford the 4 homes.
Okay.
And ultimately we had to focus on the community and the traffic improvements.
Will there be any screening between?
There will. We would propose landscaping. We would propose whatever we can do to mitigate any sort of visual just inconsistencies, right? So not to do any harm to their backyard. The site will lay as it lays, but in terms of lighting, right? We'll do dark sky compliant down lighting. We're not gonna do wall packs. You're not gonna see the lighting, go out into the street. You're gonna see it go straight down. What we have designed is basically a single road that runs in the back of it. We're not putting employee parking down there, back there. We're not proposing a bunch of street lights, so we'll do whatever we can to mitigate it, including, making sure our truck traffic stays and does not pass those homes, you know, at the end of the day, I'm a homeowner just like everybody else. And so it's something that I put some thought into, and we put some thought into, and we'll do the best that we can to mitigate any sort of detrimental effect.
Screening in that area, what will that look like?
Largely just landscaping, you know, evergreens to the extent we can do them, mixing it up and just trying to put more vegetation in there for just blocking of the view. You know, at the same time, I know that these guys run on well systems. So the other item we would propose is putting everybody, you know, connecting everybody to the water, right? And that's something we would do at our cost.
Point of clarification, the green around that you see there on the site plan, that would be the location of buffer screening. And I think the point Ian was making at the end of that was, you know, this facility needs to be connected to public water. And with public water coming into the area, if any of the residents that are living right there would like to be connected, Pantone would pay to have them connected so that it's not coming out of their own pocket. Because I believe that, you know, the township may have an ordinance that requires connection if water's in the area.
Staying with the relationship between the residences and the warehouse, there's a 100-foot, possibly called a buffer setback between the structures. And could you clarify exactly what that is? Is it the property line? Is it building wall to wall? What is that buffer or 100-foot distance?
Yeah, so the buffer there is building to property line. So as Mr. McCovey said, the green sort of blob around there is part of the property. It is at this point a pictorial representation of landscape screening or hard screening or some form of screening that goes through there, but it would be from building out.
The residential building lot to the building wall?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Going back to the traffic, have you had any communication with PennDOT regarding your proposed changes to the intersection?
So we are in the process of preparing our scoping application. So specifically to this project, we have not gone through the entire process with them yet, but I've met with them on various other projects in this area. So we, you know, that's kind of like the next step. Once we get through here, we will move through PennDOT and then obtain scoping approval, traffic study approval, and then move into highway occupancy approvals as well as traffic signals.
My observation that the most significant problem at this interchange is westbound exit from 283 to Spooky Nook.
Correct.
That queues significantly for the different uses there.
Yep.
And adding some 18-wheelers to that will compound that. And I wondered if you looked at that, extending that queue at all or doing something with that ramp.
Yeah, we certainly did. So, and you are right. With some of the other developments that occurred in the area, maybe exacerbated some of the problem there. But we certainly looked at that interchange, counted, we performed traffic counts there, looked at it, how it is an existing condition, added volume to that for an apples to apples comparison. So you bring those existing volumes up to what we call base, is without our development, but other developments in the area. And then we compare that to what it's going to look like with our development. And exactly as you had indicated, there was an impact there. But we looked at one more step farther, putting in our improvements, and we're able to bring that level of service and queue down to something that was much better than what's in existing conditions.
Thank you.
Great. One question I had is I can make out a retaining wall, looks like behind the easternmost building lot, which raised the question of would this building sit in relation to the properties in the front there, higher, lower, the same?
It would actually be a little bit of both, all depending on where you were on the property. The property itself, the high point is sort of on the right side of the building as you look at that plan. So that particular part of the building would be cut down So it would be lower than the neighboring property, but as you extend towards Chickies Creek, the ground drops off and the building would then be raised above existing ground. So you have a little bit of both as you go across the back of those.
That retaining wall would be a drop off.
Yes.
Okay. And then the entrance,
And sort of order, just that 100 feet sort of breaks up as it's currently sort of depicted here. Roughly 30 feet of that green is buffer. That gray access drive is 36 feet. So the retaining wall would be closer to, and there's roughly 25 or 30 feet between the buffer and the driveway there. That retaining wall would be, close to the drive aisle. So 40 or 50 feet away from the property.
okay, and then the entrance to the west, is that, you said for emergency use, but I guess it would be for that parking lot?
It would. So it's slender radius, slender throat of driveway. It's configured only to accommodate car traffic, no truck traffic. We would post, obviously, to the greatest extent we could, signage to make sure that, or it's certainly strongly encourage trucks not to go beyond the truck access. And the truck access itself would also be configured with tight radius on the west side and large radius on the east side, and sort of a formation that makes it difficult for trucks to want to go the other way. And one of the huge benefits of being this close to the interchange, I know wayward trucks are a huge issue in a lot of communities. This close with an access even closer to the interchange, this sort of sets up as one of those really good positions to avoid that sort of situation.
Okay, and then, so that, was there a separate traffic analysis done on that western entrance as to how it would affect South Chickies Road?
Yep, there sure was. So we included that as well. So as one of the intersections that we studied. So we had counted volumes on South Chickies Road, and we used our distribution analysis really just to push passenger vehicles over to that interchange, and I'm sorry, that intersection. And we developed a level of service as well as a queue analysis for that as well. Again, it fell within the acceptable levels of service and queue, and that was reviewed by your township traffic engineer as well.
Okay, and then I think the only other thing is, what would it be a 24-hour operation, or have, regular hours, or?
Typically, it's about 2 shifts, right? But what they will have is a skeleton shift at night, which is about an eighth of the size. And what it is just basically repositioning the interior of the building. So to be prepared for when the next shift comes in. You think about it as it's maintenance, it's cleanup, it's also some staff doing some work with ongoing loading on, basically the few trucks that need to go out in the morning.
But most of it would be during the day or daylight hours.
Yeah, and the peak hours, in my understanding, is peak hours for these type of facilities typically run a little bit off of what we consider normal peak for an office. So, it's 7 to 4 as opposed to 8 to 5, right, or 9 to 5. And then it'll run like 3:30 to 10, right, and then it stops there.
Okay. That's all I have.
Anticipated employment?
It's roughly 5 employees per 10,000 square feet on average. It fluctuates, depending on the type of user. So you'll see users down to 2 employees per 10,000 square feet, up to about 8 to 10 per 10,000 square feet. Typically, we just model it off of ITE in terms of what's needed for employee parking spaces. But in this corridor, we do not anticipate probably a high traffic user, like an Amazon or something like that. We just don't fit their prototype. And so that's roughly the employee count.
So that would be about 200.
Right.
And Pomona is home-based where?
Irvine, California. So California-based company. It started, the history of warehousing really started after World War II. A gentleman by the name of Buzz Oates out of Sacramento really created what's called Buzz's boxes, right? And that was the original precast, is before tilt up or cast in place concrete walls. And Sacramento was growing. I mean, in the 60s, 70s, it was one of the top 2 or 3 growing communities in the US. And he was very successful building these boxes for warehousing. A guy by the name of Trammell Crowe is doing the same in Dallas. And Carl Pantone, he worked for Buzz Oates and, saw an opportunity in the LA area and was able to just entrepreneurial, right? Built boxes, started a construction company, and just kept on expanding. And he built partnerships really in each of the quadrants of the US, where, these facilities are really around population centers. It's about origins and destinations. It's about, where products want to come in and where products want to be consumed. And it's a big part of this asset class. It touches our lives in a big way, because a lot of the products we have at our house all have at one point been in a facility like this.
Tilt ups have the advantage of being expandable.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bennett would like to speak as well.
Okay, are we done, Andy?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes, real quick, again, going back to the South Chickies Road, I hear that the traffic study was done. I'm also hearing that the study indicates there won't be a need for any improvements. Is that correct?
I believe that the study indicates that traffic calming or improvements to deal with a higher load of traffic, for example, right turn lanes, stop signs that Jared was talking about earlier, are not necessary. But South Chickies Road itself will be improved to handle the traffic that's coming through the area.
How about west of South Chickies Road, west of your site, be improved? At least at this point, are you planning on that?
I'm sorry, would you mind?
Yes, South Chickies Road, west of your project site, will be improved in any way?
No, I think that falls into as you head west, there will certainly be some passenger vehicle traffic heading that way. Not really to the point that we see any impact. And I believe that the municipal line falls shortly there, right around Chickies Creek, but nothing to the west.
Okay, nothing to the west. Okay. Will you, do you have any plans to limit right-hand turns at that intersection? And I'm talking about the south exit, the emergency exit down here. Do you have any plans to limit right turns there?
I mean, not at this exact moment, but I mean, it's something we can explore with staff if it's warranted. That intersection right there is really dedicated for employees, and South Chickies Road, we're talking roughly 200 employees at this facility. And I don't know if it generates enough traffic to warrant any type of limitation on that right-hand turn, but it's something we'll certainly look into.
So we won't see trucks turning there?
You won't. Well, so the trucks will be dedicated to that front entrance,
Okay.
right? And then
Okay.
we'll have a signage on site that basically prohibits the right turn for those trucks. And it'll direct trucks back to Spooky Nook over to 283.
Okay. And then at Chickies and Spooky Nook, that intersection will become signalized, right? Is that what I heard? Will be a signal there?
Actually, there will not be. So we did run warrants to identify what kind of impact would be at that intersection. We are doing improvements there, the southbound right turn lane on the Chickies, but just because of the minor street volumes aren't high enough to meet PennDOT's warrant requirements, a signal is not proposed as part of this project.
Nor at the westbound exit, there'll be no signal there?
So at the two interchanges,
Right.
traffic lights are proposed at both of those
Okay.
interchanges. And to maybe elaborate a little bit on warrants. There's certain criteria that traffic lights have to meet in order to be
Right, I
installed.
understand.
Okay.
And then my final question is, looks like a lot of impervious here on this project. I know you probably haven't gotten into great detail on stormwater management, but any concern that presents a bigger challenge than you might be able to handle?
No, sir. As you said, it is a little early. We haven't crunched all the numbers and sized up the detention basins and infiltration basins at this point. But no, there has been some preliminary geotechnical work done. And at this point, we're not seeing anything that would prevent us from meeting both township and DEP requirements for stormwater.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Understanding that the board's familiar with warrants for the benefit of the public and the audience that's here. When Jared was talking about traffic warrants from PennDOT, anytime you're doing improvements on or around a PennDOT road, they need to improve them. You're not allowed to just come in and say that we want to put a stop sign up or we want to put a traffic light up. And so when he uses the term warrant, he means warranted. Is PennDOT saying that the traffic level is sufficient that they feel a traffic light is warranted? It's not our decision or the township's decision. And so that's why that one intersection there at Chickies Road and Spooky Nook that the question was asked, based off of PennDOT's requirements and criteria, they would not allow a traffic light to go in there.
I'm good.
Any more questions, Mr. Bennett?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I had another one then.
Okay.
It sounded if during your statements that you don't have a tenant in mind, you're building it spec. I see that there's 2 office locations.
Yes, we are building spec. And so this is what we call a single load building, right? And so typically how it functions is you usually have 1 or 2 tenants typically in the building. Most often one, given the size and given the proximity. And then what you'll have is offices at the corners, right? And really functions as a U if it's a single tenant user. So you think about trucks coming in, they'll typically come in on what is the right side and then exit the left. And what you'll see is material handling equipment on the inside of the facility, basically directing inbound trucks on one side and outbound trucks on the other, with your material handling equipment running in a U pattern. Otherwise, I think if it's 2 tenant, often what you see is a little bit more long-term storage, like what we call floor stack, higher value products that don't often turn very quickly. And what we build is a high cube warehouse, so it's a little bit taller. And what that actually does is, it generates a little bit less traffic than even, I think what the ITE standard is for PennDOT, just because of the high cube nature of the building.
Thank you.
Anything else?
So I think we're talking about 40 acres here. I know there's some floodplain, but I'm guessing you could maybe put 160 to 200 houses on that site, possibly. So was there any kind of analysis of traffic, to compare what it could be as another use versus what we're talking about here? Also, and we have trucks in this case, but was there any kind of check on that?
And I'm sorry, I think I didn't necessarily get the first part of your comment, but essentially is, hey, what would traffic look like if this was a different use?
Right.
So yeah, and I've actually done that study.
I thought you might have, but.
Yeah, so part of this was, viewed as commercial at one point with some other alternative uses on the backside of it. And that's actually the project that I was referring to as we've seen other projects that have maybe a 10 times the impact when it comes to trip generation. So it was a mixed use development, contained a few different items, and we took it so far, but got to a point where it was, it just didn't seem to pencil. It didn't work. It's again kind of back to access points where they need one on They need that direct convenient access off of Spooky Nook Road. So that was a hang up. And then some of the improvements that were required at the interchange didn't fit just because of the increased trip generation. So we've certainly looked at that analysis as well while we were working through this traffic study. And again, the results are essentially that here you have a product that can essentially afford some of these improvements, but in return is a much less generator. Yeah, so I think, maybe comparable. We don't have a yield plan that would show exactly how many you could fit on here and stormwater, but I didn't specifically look at residential, but I think it could be comparable. You actually might see, just kind of thinking that through to about 150 units. If we were to go there, it would actually, the trip generation would be more.
Okay, I think we're done.
So now would be a time to open it up for public comment.
Okay.
And I would recommend as folks come forward to the microphone, they state both their name and their address.
Okay. Ms. Garber, can you make sure that second mic is working for us? Folks, we're going to have an orderly process here. So you're going to have to be recognized first before you come up. And again, we would ask that you state your name and your address for minute purposes. We're going to start on the left side of the room. Everybody who wants to speak or has a question, you'll get one turn. We're going to go around. Nobody's going to be able to speak twice before somebody gets to ask their question. So we're going to start on this side of the room, and we'll start with the front rows. Second row. Can you, yep. Yes.
So I'm Kimberly Swartz, 2543 Shank Road. So I'm directly across from Spooky Nook Sports. So gentlemen, I appreciate your knowledge here, but we heard a lot of what ifs and not of actual hard numbers. And I'm a number person myself. So how many trucks is this facility going to be able to hold, and how much truck parking is there going to be there?
So I will answer the trip generation question.
Well,
with
you've
the-
got bays on your warehouse. How many bays? are in
I'll
your
let
warehouse?
him kind of speak to that. I didn't do the site layout. So when we were talking about trip generation, so I'll start with these numbers come from a national publication. It's based off of empirical data. A bunch of engineering counts were done, and they take them and they ship them to a company, and which is the ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They develop rates. Those rates we look at speculative how many trips we feel a use like this is going to generate. So by using that data, that's essentially what the ordinance requires us to use. From a trip generation standpoint, let me flip to the right page here. So land use code 150 was used warehousing. So when we break this out, looking at the AM peak hour, I'll give you total numbers, which is going to be your entering cars plus your exiting cars. So in the, we'll start with cars to answer your question, not trucks. So this is only cars. In the AM, you're going to see about 64 entering and exiting vehicles during the AM peak hour, 62 in the PM peak hour. We also looked at Saturday, which was 8. So when we spin over to trucks during the AM peak hour, total 8, PM 12, Saturday 12. And again, as Ian said, the reason that those numbers may seem slightly lower than what you expected me to say is they operate off peak. Warehouses generally operate throughout the day, long-term, as opposed to what you see with residential developments and offices, whereas there's usually that heavy hit in the morning, and then in the PM, these are essentially different.
Except we have Spooky Nook Sports, which offers absolutely no schedule at all. But even on non-Spooky Nook Sports days, I'm sure any township resident here will attest to the fact that even going westbound, you cannot get off and turn right, let alone left, onto Spooky Nook Road.
Yep.
So aside from that, now your trucks without a light. Now I take my son to school every morning at 7:30, just when you say it's non-peak. There are times when I can't pull out. The other day, I guess it was yesterday, there was an accident on 283. I couldn't even get in my own driveway from the traffic that backs up. So I know it all sounds wonderful to put these lights in and make it easier, but between the way the accidents always seem to happen between the Mountjoy exit, the Espen Shade Road exit, the Salonga exit, and the Landisville exit, we continually have traffic problems on these roads. Now we're going to introduce more trucks, more traffic. Now lights, and I work in Humboldt, so I know well by the back of my hand driving up and back 283 and the traffic and the counts. When was your traffic count done?
So there's set times when we can and cannot do
Yeah, but
traffic
when was
counts.
yours done? That's all that matters.
Well, no, I don't, I think there's importance here. So PennDOT kind of lays out when you can count. You don't want to count on a Monday, you don't want to count on a Friday. Just stay away from holidays. You know, there's just
And when
irregularities
it's
in the.
busiest for Spokane traffic.
And that's why Saturday was looked at here as well. So, you know, so these counts were done Thursday, October 7th. They were done for a 3-hour time period in the morning, 3-hour time period in the PM.
What
And what we
year?
do is 2021. So what we do is we look at essentially those 3 hours and we find what is called the peak hour. So 4 consecutive 15-minute intervals of when that traffic's the highest. And at that point is when we start our analysis. We overlay our proposed trip generation and then we start moving forward. That's the basis of our design.
Okay,
I would think-
so
I'm sorry.
that's okay. We have a lot of people that want to speak and
Can
have
I-
questions, and we've already gone over.
Well, I
I'm
was
s-
just only because he won't answer my question directly.
I thought he did answer it.
No,
What-
but not directly. I only got to ask 2 questions and that's only because he'd like to talk.
Well,
Can I
well,
just say
I'll tell you what,
one
let's
more
come
thing?
back to you. There's a whole bunch of other people here and we'll get back to you, okay, after everybody else has their turn. So again, try to be brief and we want to give everybody a chance. So in the second row.
My name is Terry Miller, 605 South Chickies Road. I lived on South Chickies Road probably 50 years of my life. And there's been more and more truck traffic coming up and down that road. And a lot of it comes from the west end. What's to keep trucks from coming off of Espen Shade Road and taking a shortcut across there, to come up our road? Plus, we have that narrow bridge down at the corner there. It was built in 1921. And we have a lot of dog walkers in our neighborhood. And then every time I walk, I'm gonna end up pushing my dog against the wall of this bridge because there's no room, you know. Get 2 cars, but nothing comes around that corner without going crossing the line, especially trucks. And nobody does 25 mile an hour either. So my question is, how do you keep traffic from coming up the other end?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's also how the site lays out. And you know, traffic is quickest on 283. Every trucker loves to do right turns. They don't like left, right? So as they're coming in from Espen Shade Road, they much rather go to the Spooky Nook intersection, turn right, turn right. And really that's how they prefer to operate.
They'd be taking a right into Espen Shade or on the South Chickies. My next question, you said about running public water and sewer. So is that going to stop in those couple houses that are up there?
We would run it to the end of our property line, basically to the creek on the west side.
So us down below there don't have to worry about sewer or water coming down there then, or is that something that we have to be looking at, or?
Look, what I could do is I could provide access to the 6 folks that were right immediately adjacent to our home. And that's that at the end of the day, like that's what we could financially afford.
That be a pumping station then?
What it would be is water. Right now, we're still working through sewer. And we have options for on-site, and then we have options for how we're going to route it, whether we're running it all the way up South Chickies, or if we're actually having to cross that Amtrak facility.
Thank you.
Sorry, if I could ask one quick question. Are those houses that you're talking about, or your home maybe in the next, like on the other side of Chickies Creek?
No, I'm down below. My house is built in 1850. So it's no, so,
I was just trying to figure out which direction you were taking the sewer. That was all.
yeah, we're down
Thank you.
below on the 5th house on the right and bottom from the bottom of the hill.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else in that row? I feel it myself.
Let's go down. Yeah. Hi, I'm Dorothy Roth. I live at 423 South Chickies. And I'm actually opposed to this rezoning only because of living there and knowing that property, knowing the traffic we have on South Chickies. I mean, it's really somewhat tranquil at the moment, but it does get quite busy at times. And the other thing is that when I was reading the application that was presented by Pantone as well as your ordinance, I don't know, I just felt this dread went through me that the thought of moving from this house, because I'm not moving. Am I not loud enough? Oh, get up. Okay, there, how's that?
Much better. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I have not accepted the buyout from the company because we bought this land in 78. And I can't really put in exact words how I feel about the property other than this has been our home since 1978. I have a good water supply. When we built our builders, we're actually down 150 feet and I've never run out of water. Septic system was actually supersized and we have our the septic tank is pumped according to township regulations. And then when I looked at the East Hempfield Township map dated 6/19/2021 that showed the parks, trails, and open spaces, I saw that there were about a dozen or so parks and open spaces in the township, small and larger. But I also noticed that this sliver of land on South Chickies looks like a little finger pointing to Chickies Creek. So an idea formed and I asked, why can't this land be preserved as an open green space and allow for planting that would return these areas to native plants and trees? It would improve the health of Chickies Creek over the years, not to mention creating a healthier environment for those of us living along South Chickies from Spooky Nook to Route 230. And in that, what Mr. Mueller said about the bridge, but also about South Chickies is actually the, what you'd call detour route when there's an accident on 283 between Mount Joy and Salunga. Our road becomes a parking lot because they take them off at Espenshade, bring them up the road and put them back on at the Salunga exit. And I have seen that happen several times already. I think that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in that row? Okay. Can we go to the next row? Is there anyone else in that third row? So third row, no one. Fourth row, was there anyone? I'm sorry, sir, just this side of the room for right now. We'll get over here. We'll get there.
Richard Sarko, 2512 Shank Road. Since I only have 3 minutes, I'm going to make some comments that may actually be questions. I would prefer, rather than having them interrupt me, that they start, any answers be given at the end of my 3-minute comment. I noticed during the Planning Commission recording on YouTube that all these proposed changes really are dependent on PennDOT doing them, that the only way the township can force them to do any changes are on where their land abuts the road. And so that's to the south of 283. But I'm wondering how the township can ensure that all the turning lanes get built, whether PennDOT agrees to that. And I think if that's not listed in the zoning code as in the conditional use, that it should be amended so that all road improvements are absolutely completed or going to be completed before you approve the application. The other thing is they've been very vague about the number of trucks coming in. I do have a copy of the diagram, and under parking data legend,
it lists trailer parking area 136 or 130 something. I can't even quite make it out with a magnifying glass, and 178 car parking spots. And so with 136 places to park trucks, it seems like their projections are a little low. And also it sounds like Pantone is going to own the warehouse, but they're going to contract out to different trucking companies to use the facility. And I'm sure each trucking company is going to decide when they're going to run their trucks. And so this concept of not having trucks at night may be dependent on who their client is in the future. The other thing is there's no mention of noise. Certainly for the 6 houses back there, I can hear the backup beeping of the trucks from Nook Sports and from Klein Septic. Luckily, it's very infrequent, so it's not a bother. But those beep, beep, beep are really designed to be obnoxious so people don't get run over. And so you're going to have trucks backing up, and there are these other little jockey trucks or jitneys that once the cab leaves, and I'm sure they have backup beepers as well. And I just wonder how that's going to affect those 6 people there along South Chickies Road. And then I just want the township supervisors to think about our neighborhood, Shank Road, Spooky Nook Road, and see how it differs from every other intersection. You look at State Road, you look at Route 72, you look at Espenshade Road, and you look at the E-Town exit where Griner Industries is located, and you have stoplights at the ramps. And so ours is different. We have 41 houses, 41 different residences and families that live along Spooky Nook Road and Shank Road, the group farm, and then you add those 6. So, 41 families are going to be affected by this. And, I shouldn't have to remind you, but for the past 15 years, at the first meeting of the year, you make a resolution to protect farmland, including to preserve prime agricultural farmland and to preserve both the rural and agricultural character of the areas of the township generally referred to as north of 283. We are different than the other intersections. And so the traffic was caused by this board allowing Nook Sports to come in. And then 2 years later, 2012, 2 years later, you exacerbated the traffic problem by changing the zoning from general industrial that a lawyer has told me would have only allowed them to do sports related tournaments and things like that. And you made them into a convention center. So this past weekend, they had 2 simultaneous events. And right now, running today through, I think, Saturday, they have the Kids and Babies Expo. And so I don't think their traffic study, a few hours on a Saturday and another day, is really reliable and gives a true indication of how even traffic lights can back up and stack the cars and trucks. So
thank you.
Please look at our neighborhood as a different type of intersection, and warehouses and belong in an industrial park, and so did Nook Sports, but we can't do anything about Nook Sports. Please don't double down on the traffic.
Did you guys want to respond? I think.
Just a couple quick things. I think that the questions I heard in there were about noise and again, about the number of trucks coming in and out, along with some other comments. To the noise point with the jockey trucks and those types of things, that's one of the reasons all of the bays are on the other side of the building. All of the bays to bring trucks in and out when the jockeys are coming back and forth are on the 283 side of the building facing the highway traffic. So you would have the barrier of the building limiting the sound coming to the residents on the southern side of the property. There's also been some questions about the number of trucks coming in and trucks coming out. The numbers that Jared has indicates that over the course of a day, approximately 120 trucks will come in. So if you break that down over a period of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., 15 hours, you're looking at around 8.5 trucks coming in per hour. So a little bit more than one every 10 minutes coming into the property. I think that might does that better answer your question? We'll wait till you're back.
All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else in that row? Okay, in the last row?
My name is Rick Bollinger. I live at 2465 Shank Road. And I just want to comment that I haven't heard any guarantees that we're going to do 6 trucks. What happens if your firm gets bought out by another outfit and then they're gone, but now all of a sudden somebody really wants to do some trucking. So 6 months later, we don't have any guarantee that there's only going to be 6 trucks a day. And when those trucks cut loose, where are they going? Is all of this going to be east-west, or is it going to go up Prospect Hill? Because if you want to go south, where are you going to go? Where are you going to put all these trucks in the dead of winter going up Prospect Hill? And if you try to go north, oh, let's go to Spooky Nook and then cross on the Landisville Road. Isn't that going to be cute? You know, there's going to be people trying to duck under trucks on the trail. That's craziness. So first of all, so my main point is there's no guarantee you're going to be in business for forever. We don't know who's coming in. A second point would be what you have is heavy industry. I worked in this stuff. I worked night shift, trucks pounding when they hook up, horns blowing, somebody up on the roof pounding on an air handler, belts screeching, bright lights. My neighborhood is already stressed. The other night, I could hear the convention or whatever let out. And what you get is people come out of there and it's like, where's my car? Me, 6, 7 times. And then they go another 100 feet. And it's like, okay, this way. You get that again and again. And then, was that my car? Was that his car? You have battling horns. This is 10 o'clock at night, 100 feet from houses. Can you imagine that? You know, it's constant horns, trash. I mean, kids are great, but they're fired up from sports and they're out of big cities. And when you come out of there, all your trash goes on the floor. And I've seen people that are cleaning up trash and they try to keep on it, but those heavy winds that we have, I mean, trash by the bale blows across that street. You know, so what I'm saying is our neighborhood is already stressed. You know, so, and I worked in this industry. I know about the lights, the sound, the noise, crazy stuff. Let's see. I also wanted to mention that the on-ramps going east and west are not long enough. They're from 40, 50, 60 years ago. You know, there wasn't as much traffic. But where I live, in the summer, once, twice an hour, I hear truckers laying on the horn, you know, letting people know that if you don't get up to speed, I'm going to cream you. And the ramps are just not long enough. You know, so you would have to lengthen the ramps on both sides of the road. So, yeah, I guess that's pretty much what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in that back row?
Hi, I'm Jill Holm. I live at 2875 Schenck Road, and I work on Stony Battery Road. So I drive Spooky Nook Road past Chickies weekdays twice a day. And in this past year, I've seen farmland along Stony Battery Road transformed into 3 large warehouses by Nolt Road. They were built on speculation. They're still in the process of being built. And then further up the road is the QVC warehouse. And I just feel that there are better places to put warehouses than at this location because of the location of the Chickies Creek. I think it's a really picturesque area and it's worth protecting. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on this side in the back? Okay, we're going to move over to this side. Is there anyone in that second row that would like to come up and speak? Anyone in the third row?
I don't really have any questions for these guys. I think they've,
Can you state your name for us? And your
my name is Vance Weaver. I live at 569 South Chickies Road on this road. All right, so I know the traffic. You don't need to say anything anymore. You've tried to persuade these people that you might know what you're talking about. You don't, because you don't live there.
Sir, I know passions run high, but can we just be respectful and
So
continue?
far, I am being respectful. All right. If you had a clue about this area, you wouldn't even try this. Honestly, you wouldn't. I mean, if you'd seen that field, you look at the runoff, you'd understand what you're up against. There's people live right there. I drove truck too. I know what it sounds like, and I know the hours truck drivers run. Nope, that's 24-hour thing. It's loud, and there's lights, and there's banging and the beeping, like he said. There's a reason I wear hearing aids. I could make this quick. I could just have everybody here stand up who does not want this. If there's one person who actually wants this here, you can stand with that. Just say it.
Okay.
Don't let this happen. Don't add on to the traffic. I see the traffic on our road, the accident. It's bumper to bumper the whole way down through. That's no joke. To think you can get away without a light at that corner? Nope. And that other road, that's a lie. Those cars will be coming back and forth in front of us.
Thank you. Anyone else in that row?
My name is Aubrey Weaver. I live at 569 South Chickies Road. A lot of the things that concern me have already been mentioned by some other neighbors. I am
Would-
very concerned about the traffic.
Would you mind just grabbing the microphone? Just pull on it and it'll come out. There you go.
Okay, yes, I am very concerned about the traffic. There is a lot of traffic on our road. I've seen it increase since I've lived there. I've been there, 15, 16 years now. And just with Spooky Nook being created, we get some of that traffic on our road as well. When there's accidents on 283, they use our road to get back on, no matter which direction they're going. We see a lot more truck traffic than we ever have. It actually used to knock our power out when the trucks would go by, because although the speed limit's 25, nobody goes 25, believe me. Just as another neighbor mentioned, there are a lot of dog walkers. We have kids. I don't want this much traffic on our road. It's already a lot of traffic. I'm also very concerned about the noise, because trucks do create a lot of noise. I can hear the traffic from 283 now at like 1 in the morning because of how much development has been in the area in the last couple of years. It keeps me awake at night. Having a business right, I'm 2 doors down from where you have your emergency exit and your employee driveway proposed. Having a buffer and having that parking along 283 is not going to stop the noise. So I am concerned about that. I'm also concerned about the terrain. That field already has some flooding. So I'm concerned about some of that flooding coming down into our property. I'm concerned about our property value. I'm concerned about safety, just having a whole lot of people we don't know in our neighborhood at all hours of the day. And I'm very concerned we have well water. I'm concerned about the safety of our water and even just that much traffic. I don't know what you're producing, what you're manufacturing, but as some other people have said, this may not maintain, your business may not maintain. We don't know that. We can't foresee and what would go in there once this is built, who would be the next tenant and what would they bring into the neighborhood. I think that's everything that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in that row that would like to speak? Okay, the next row behind that.
I'm Jerry Grube, 647 Champ Boulevard. My wife and I own and operate the farm at that address, which is directly across Route 283 from the property in question. When you had the maps up there, most of the purple that you saw on the top of the map, that's our farm. I was born here. I grew up on that farm. My wife and I took over the farm and purchased it from my parents after I graduated from college and got married. Over the last 62 years, my family has worked that farm trying to be good stewards of the land, trying to make it better than it was when we got it. We work to protect the waters of the Chickies Creek that makes up the entire northern and western boundary of the farm. My father implemented conservation practices in the early 1960s before they were required or even a thing to do. He laid out fields in a contour, installed terraces and grassed waterways to prevent erosion. I continued to improve on what he started. I installed and maintained vegetated buffer strips along the Chickies Creek and more recently implemented no-till planting and cover crops on most of my acres. I've watched the quality of the Chickies Creek improve over the years since my childhood as a result of practices like that by the many landowners along the creek. And now I consider that creek an underappreciated gem, natural gem. May not be a Class A trout stream, but it's home to an amazing amount of aquatic life. Because of that, I have biology classes from Hempfield High School come out to the farm, asked to come out to the farm every year, every spring to do a stream study. They wade in the creek and take an inventory of the aquatic life. Last year, one teacher told me we had more macroinvertebrates than ever before. The kids found big stoneflies and hellgrammites. Downstream, we caught a wild brown trout. I also have scores of hunters asking me permission to hunt on the farm because they know wildlife is abundant along the creek. The Chickies Creek deserves consideration for this development. But along with those improvements in the natural world, I've watched other changes take place over the years. As a little boy, I sat on the fence and watched the bulldozers and earth movers work to build the intersection as then Route 230 was changed to Route 283, made into a limited access highway as that intersection was built. I kept track of the building of the Armstrong Distribution Center, which is now Nook Sports, as I waited for the school bus along Spooky Nook Road. I watched the farm next to ours get turned into a golf driving range. By the way, my dad tried to buy that farm when it was initially sold, but he ended up just being used as a pawn to spur the eventual buyer into action. That little tract of land is now owned by a developer just waiting for his chance to cover it with steel, concrete, and asphalt. I stood up here and warned of the traffic congestion to come as Nook proposed its plan for the Armstrong building. I watched the property in front of ours that I used to farm and pasture livestock on get turned into a Comfort Suites hotel. As I thought back on these changes, I asked myself if they had made my life any better. The simple answer is no. In fact, those changes made life more difficult for me and my family as farmers. Each one of those things made it feel like we were getting strangled by an ever-tightening noose. Each one raised the pressure from development a little higher, making it more difficult for any of my children to take over the farm if they choose to do that. I know you say the land north of 283 is to stay in agriculture. My family would like that too. In fact, when the township asked to rezone a large part of our farm from commercial to agricultural, we agreed. We didn't fight it like some of our neighbors did. My point is, the more development that surrounds us, the more difficult it becomes to maintain a farming operation like we have done for the past 62 years, regardless of how it's zoned. And then you have the traffic that a lot of people mentioned. I know they talked about having lower trip generation. What they didn't mention was even if it's 10 times less trip generation, you're talking about a 20 times heavier vehicle that's coming out of there. So how much difference does that make? I know every day we have to fight the steady stream of traffic coming from 4 different directions as we exit and enter our lane, Champ Boulevard. It's hard enough with a car pickup, let alone with a large truck or a piece of farm equipment. I know the proposed warehouse says it won't generate as much traffic as other uses. To that I say, there's already too much traffic. Any amount more will make the situation unbearable and even dangerous. Just last Friday, I had a wayward tractor trailer come most of the way down our half-mile lane before he realized he was on the wrong road. He was looking for a place to turn around. I told him he needed to back up. He said, I can't do it. With my convincing and guidance and some deep ruts through the mud, we got him turned around. Another time, we had a tractor trailer come all the way in our lane, make a big loop through one of my growing cornfields to turn around. Along the way, he passed 3 private drive signs, ran through the flower beds at my parents' house, and blew out 4 tires on the rocks along the lane. I don't need any more of that kind of truck traffic. I know the developer has offered some traffic improvements. We need more than just some traffic lights. We need a major overhaul. A few traffic lights aren't going to solve the problems that are there. Getting back to stewardship of the land and waters, I looked at the site plan for this warehouse, and to me, it looks something like a size 12 foot jammed in a size 10 shoe. The 400,000 square foot building equates to about 9 acres under roof. When you add the parking lots and pavement around the building, it looks like there's at least that much area covered by asphalt. So for a rough estimate, let's say there's 20 acres. You realize that 2 inches of rainfall over a 20-acre area yields over 1 million gallons of water.
Mr. Group.
Just got a little bit yet. Let me
Okay.
just finish. The area remaining on the site beyond the building and asphalt doesn't seem sufficient to infiltrate all that water. So where will it go? Right into the Chickies Creek. If you think about the extreme rainfall events and all the other development in the area, you can see why FEMA had to update its flood maps and why suddenly I am required to purchase thousands of dollars worth of flood insurance in order to maintain a line of credit at the bank. Because one of my barns that has stood for 120 years is now in a flood zone. Again, I know some say this shouldn't affect me because I'm north of Route 283 in an area designated for agriculture. That doesn't give me much consolation when I think about one of the reasons the developer gave for rezoning his property. He said it makes sense to rezone and develop this because there are properties nearby that are already zoned for industrial uses. So this would be a continuation of those. We can all see that the pressure and development and the detrimental effects from it don't pay attention to man-made boundaries. As the industrial sprawl swallows everything in its path, we already have huge warehouses and buildings sitting vacant in the township and in neighboring townships. Why do we need more? So just don't kick the can down the road and let someone else clean up what spills out. Make decisions now that will protect agricultural areas and natural resources. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in that row?
My name's Deborah Grube. I live at 647 Champ Boulevard. I won't repeat everything you just said.
Thank you. It was
I-
good, but thank you.
I do have a couple questions. You talk about the water. I know with the hotel, there was no more water allowed to be brought through. Has that been approved or is that an if?
That's actually been a discussion we've had and an offer that we received from the Public Water Authority, local authority, that they would extend water to our site and they had capacity to do so.
So it is approved.
Yeah, we actually received the figures of how much it would cost from them.
You talked about the stormwater runoff, but it was sort of another iffy thing. And those of you that live along there, you know, in 2011, how terrible it was. The Leader Krantz is down there. That was damaged heavily. Several houses were damaged heavily, and adding however many, 14 or more acres of impervious area. Has that been approved, or where do you stand with that?
So it hasn't been approved yet, but we have spoken with Leader Krantz. We know it's like a concern, right? And it's a concern not only for us, but it's something we'll actually have to go through and we'll have to receive city approval from and DEP approval from. So that's the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. And so we will have to design our stormwater management and in a way that actually it does not increase the volume that runs off of the facility.
You just heard what he said. He's an engineer. He knows what he's talking about.
We got one too.
So, but you don't have it approved. You don't really have a plan. So you're asking them to change the zoning
We are
before
asking
you
them to
have a
change the
true
zoning,
plan.
And then what we'll do is we'll go back and we'll go through our full site plan, concept plan, and receive those approvals. But as our civil engineer stated earlier, everything that we've seen, and we've done our due diligence on the site, we've had geotechnical engineers out there to go test it and to actually look into the detention. And we're not seeing anything that gives us any pause that we won't be able to meet those
Okay, we're
standards.
talking about noise and you're sending it across 283. That's where I live. So I would be hearing all this noise. There's a wedding venue there now. I feel sorry for all the brides that would possibly have their weddings ruined by the beeping and loud noise of an obnoxious facility. Jobs. I work in human resources. Anybody in Lancaster County trying to hire people? Possible to fill 200 jobs, which is confusing to me because you say 62 cars, but you also say 200 people. So I'm just saying jobs. I think it's going to be a hard thing there. The other thing is, like somebody else sort of said, you're building this now and you're talking about people needing toilet paper. That's all because of the pandemic. Hopefully we're getting through that, things will go on, but you're looking to destroy farmland. You got a couple seconds more on it. Once you take over and destroy the soil, you can't get it back. So if you build this, it falls through, just like Park City and the strip malls we see all over the place and other warehouses that are sitting empty. You can never get that back. And people need not only toilet paper, but people are looking for food for their families that's safe and affordable. And you're taking this away. And I think that you need to remember that before you get rid of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in that row? In the row behind?
My name is John Risser, 2993 Shank Road, Manheim, and we live on a 70-acre farm. And a couple things, the intersection at South Chickies and Spooky Nook Road, I've heard tonight is not going to have a red light. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I travel that road quite frequently. And, you know, with a car, it's difficult to make a left-hand turn towards 283. They're talking about 18-wheelers doing this, you know, 24 hours a day. So I think that's a huge problem. And the traffic exiting off of, the point was brought up earlier, the traffic exiting off of westbound 283, attempting to make left-hand turns, that is, it's very difficult now. And with heavy truck traffic, that's going to be extremely difficult. And also, rezoning ag land to this purpose, I don't think is smart for the township, for the future. And I think what we've one of the overriding themes we've heard here tonight is quality of life. That's why we live here. So that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else in that row? Anyone else in the row behind?
Evening, my name is Frank Fraser. I live at 2888 Spokane Oak Road. And when it comes to trucks and so on like that, oh God almighty, please, gentlemen, try to find another location. Between trucks and motorcycles, oh my Lord. And as far as the building, the complex building across the street from us, comes garbage day, they come and get the big truck and bam, put the garbage in it and it just wakes us up completely. I am telling you so. I'm not anxious to see this come along as far as the traffic thing concerned. When they try to turn corners there on the Shank Road and Spokane Oak, either right or left, they're tearing down stop signs all the time. And that bridge down there, I don't think they'll go through that no more. It's been torn down enough. So, my thing is, I really don't want to see it come. Like the lady says, try QVC. It's working out pretty good there. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in that row?
I'm Carol Maley, live in 251 Broad Street, Landisville. These people, I'm not in their community, but they have legitimate concerns. My concern is to you. Why does this have to be developed in the first place? What's happening to our green space here in this county, in this township? Why does every single inch have to be developed? Have developments, look what happened down here on State Street with the hospital coming in. What a terrible thing for our community. And, everywhere now we have 3 fast food gas stations, with 7-Eleven in there. And they're all like within a mile of each other, less than a mile. And I'm just concerned, I don't know why you keep developing this land, because I agree with this lady and these other ones that were speaking about the land. We need to keep it the way it is. And we have enough. I haven't really seen with all the industry coming in here that it's helped our tax base. It's not helped our taxes at all. And what's the point? Why are you driven to do this?
Thank you. Is there anyone else in that row? In the back of the room, those that are standing, is there anyone that wanted to speak? Okay. We're going to do one more time around. Did you have more that you wanted to ask?
Development comes in supervisors because my father served on the board of supervisors of Londonderry Township near Middletown for years. So I know everybody wants to try to do the right thing. I have to agree. Our taxes certainly here have not gone down since I've lived here, which has been since 2015 for as much development has gone on. But besides that, I own Indian Echo Caverns. Directly across from Indian Echo Caverns, what was once a Christmas tree farm was bought by UPS. It is now a UPS trucking facility of 800,000 square feet, about 18,000 jobs, they said, which has still not happened. They've not discussed blasting and how much blasting they're going to have to do with earth moving. They're going to say they have environmental studies, and I had to work closely because of the caverns and the damage that could possibly happen right across the creek, because our cave borders right on the Swatara Creek. I know I'm talking not about our township, but I know what it's like to watch a facility like this be built and what it does to the area. What was once a farm field, which is all important to us because that's what I am, a farmer, becomes a nightmare. What I used to look down when I'd come down our long driveway, people go, we don't know you're back here because our driveway is so long. what used to come back there and be beautiful darkness where people would want to like enjoy. Now it is lit up as bright as this room at night. All of our bats had moved. The water, they said, would not be disrupted for as many stormwater retention ponds as they've built, has actually changed the water levels and the way it infiltrates in the caverns when the creek rises. So it doesn't matter how many studies they say they can do, when you're in a karst area like we are here, like we are at the caverns, it's gonna change. It's not gonna be predictable because Mother Nature is anything but predictable. And it's right now, I'm in discussion with UPS because areas in our caverns that never flooded now flood, which is impacting our business. And it's the same thing, what's going to happen here. I mean, they're going to say they're going to have the right retention size ponds, but the DEP really doesn't know. And you really can't predict it. They can assume to predict it, but until it's actually built, like the 400,000 square foot roof, as we discussed, Jerry pointed that out well, and the amount of water that creates, it's not only going to affect downstream, it's also going to affect upstream in anything that they try to do. I mean, it's such an environmental concern to me to watch this happen. I mean, we've all discussed it, and I think all of the citizens here are trying to tell you that, we appreciate the position you're in and we understand why development needs to happen. But I think that this is the wrong place. It's basically in a residential community and in a farm community. And there's other places where it would be better put rather than here. And I know they're saying that it's like an extension of where that environmental but that's a completely different kind of economic growth on the other side of Spooky Nook Road. And they're trying to compare a warehouse to a well drilling and a church and a very small industrial type facilities and businesses. You can't compare this unless you've lived with it. And trust me, I am living with it currently. And I just hope that you take your community words and advice and please.
Thank you.
do not approve.
All right, on the left side of the room, is there anyone else that would like to speak again?
I'm a nervous public speaker, so I just want to go over it one more time, just to like clarify my own thoughts too. And the one point I made that I thought was good was there is no guarantee that your company will not be bought out. There is no guarantee that for whatever reason, there's a new person in there. That's a huge building they have on that map. That is huge. How do you control who comes in? Now, all of a sudden they want, 200 trucks an hour. So once it's there, we've got it, but we have to pay the price for that. So what you say about how many trucks you have and all that, that means nothing. That's absolutely no guarantee. The other point I want to make is this is heavy industry. I've worked this, I know it, the trucks banging and when they load and it's heavy industry. What is the cost of land for heavy industry where you can make all the noise you want, you can, all the light, all the mess? What does that cost an acre? And I know you can't tell me, but how much are you paying an acre for this land if you go ahead with the deal? And I bet there's a huge discrepancy because of the zoning. And my point is somebody's going to pocket a lot of money on this because they're putting heavy industry on land that wasn't zoned for that. So they're buying land cheap. And I think we're being asked to pick up the slack and take the cost of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone on the right side that would like to speak again?
Have you looked at any properties that are already in an industrial area? I think there's something on Hempland Road that's for sale or lease that would already have water and access to Route 30 and everything. What is the difference in, even if you have to tear it down and build something up as opposed to taking a natural resource away?
It's financial feasibility. It's access to the 283.
Well, this has direct access to Route 30.
And I think we like.
which
to-
interlinks with
It
283.
it does, but it's on the Lancaster, York side, if I'm correct, right? And we like the 283 corridor to Harrisburg. And it's just, it's largely where you see, there are two intermodals in Harrisburg. I mean, and really that's kind of by design, right? It's where goods flow. It's the railroad system. So we like.
There's a railroad there and it links, there's two ways to get onto Route 30. Anyhow, I'm
Intermodal
not going to
system.
argue with you. I just thought,
Right.
rather than take a natural resource, it would make more sense with everything that's available in the county to take some, there's other properties along 283. And something that no one remembered was Roots Day on Tuesday. I'm sure they did not do their study because when you combine Roots and the Nook and an accident, you never get home.
Thank you. Okay, let me just, is there anyone else on this right side? Go ahead.
Who's selling this land? Is it farmer? A farmer or what?
I do not know.
Huh?
It could be. Okay. Is there anyone else that wants to make a comment or speak? I don't know if I should answer that. Go ahead, sir.
I think it's really obvious why they want to do this. And anyone that is for it, why they want to do it. This is undeniable, total disrespectfulness to the people in this area. The land, the nature, the environment. It's downright greed is what it is. Don't let this happen. Please don't let this happen.
Thank you, sir. Did I see somebody in the back that wanted to speak one more time?
Yes, I'm Frank Frazier, once again. I'm interested to know. I'm interested to know exactly what these gentlemen will be transporting back and forth. I didn't quite hear that, you know? I heard something mentioned about toilet paper. I don't know. I can't see the urgent need to take that land anyhow. And because like I said, the motorcycle thing too, you know, they have some to quiet it down. Those people have no respect for us at all, man. They, you know the deal. God bless.
Thank you. All right, are we done? Is there anyone else? Okay, please be brief, ma'am. Third time, please be brief.
Make a point is when the wedding venue was approved to have music outside, you guys had conditionally cut off the time that they could make noise for the residents' sake. So that's 10 o'clock. And then nobody should be able to hear music outside after 10 o'clock. Yet when their truck facility is going to be directly across from.
I'm sorry, you'll have to speak into the microphone.
When the trucking facility backs up to what would be our side or Shank Road side, we're certainly going to hear that more than, and certainly past 10 o'clock. And as for that matter, I've called the East Hempfield Township Police 5 times on being able to hear that wedding venue like after 11 o'clock. And I get a little tired of hearing the chicken dance. I'm sure I'll get a little tired of hearing trucks speak too.
Thank you. All right, this is the last one.
Mr. Chairman, you'll have to ask Zoom as well.
Okay, thank you.
Richard Sarko again, I'll be very brief. I appreciate that this is probably one of the few boards that actually takes that pledge to preserve farmland. I just wish you'd take more actions to show that you actually believe in the words that you're repeating. I do know a township that puts its money where its mouth is, and that's Ole Township in Pennsylvania, right outside of the city of Reading. And the supervisors there in the 1980s made the whole township put it on the National Register of Historic Places. And there is no development there. They are protecting their farms. Walmart can't come in, people can't subdivide and put a housing development on their farm. And actually, by having that designation, they were able to make the Sunoco pipeline go completely around the township. So I wish, other than saying that, that pledge every January, I wish you would actually show us that you actually take care of the neighborhoods north of 283.
Thank you. Is there anyone on Zoom? There is not. Whew. All right. Is there, at this point, Mrs. Pfeiffer, do we close the hearing?
Yes, I would close the hearing at this point.
Okay.
Perhaps do it by motion, just so we're.
Okay. Is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. LaFever. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Weaver. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Can we poll Mr. Bennett?
Sorry, I forgot about it.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Okay. So hearing is closed. Thank you. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 2-minute or 5-minute recess. Take a little break, and we'll be back at it here in another 5 minutes. So please bear with us. Thank you if you're online.
Scared me the first time that thing went off.
Yeah, it scares me.
Realized what you were doing. Enterprise is about to self-destruct.
Interesting that it flips which ones it is.
This is a rezoning hearing. So this is not for the building. This is just for the land to rezone it. No. Not rezoning. But not rezoning.
Doesn't come into play until it goes further in the planning process. This is literally just changing it.
Let's see it again, if it gets approved. He was online, he's online. Yep.
Different from when I was on the planning committee and we first saw it.
Either all muted, like either nobody can unmute themselves or everybody can unmute themselves. So then when we have board of supervisors, then it's constant. Either they're texting,
Even if it was a township road,
comment, I question,
it's private
making
property.
sure, just like now.
Unless it's a safety hazard, we will not touch it. If it's a safety hazard, we'll deal with it. Not that just overhanging the road. Nope. Yeah, while you're cutting somebody's property.
I did it for my office. And that was more functional because I had 2 widescreen monitors and was able to have chat open, participants open, and all the things to share and stuff. It's a little harder to do it off. But it's more helpful for me to be able to be in here physically to manage all the things. And again, Tom.
Is that your wife who's in the paper or something?
Yes.
She a nurse?
She's a
Try
nurse
to
instructor.
communicate that with her from out there and then
She's my better half.
Oh, I don't know.
Sunday paper?
It was a couple weeks ago.
I forget what it was, but I remember seeing it.
yeah.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah.
Remember that last time you called the cops because I was trimming some of your bushes? Well, they're starting to come out on the
Yes,
road.
I did see that tonight. I will get that. We had the three guys come out and
I'd like to
trim
give
them.
a date that we're
They
gonna
didn't
vote on
do
it.
as much as we wanted.
I'd like to give a
Tell 'em
date that
to
we're
I got
gonna vote on
get
it.
it back.
Right here tonight, I looked up and I said, I saw that they were getting out. So I had to take care of that.
Oh,
This week anyway.
I want to see a plan for the traffic, not just this. The signals are not enough. That intersection needs done major. The other stuff with the noise and all that, yeah, we can't do a lot about that.
All right. Okay, folks, if you could please take your seat. Okay, we have one quick item that we're going to get out of the way on the agenda next. It's the consent agenda. It's where routine business gets dealt with, gets approved. And then we'll discuss the hearing that we just had. So for the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, please, looking at the agenda for this evening, I was impressed with the golf course progress this year. And kudos to all of our staff and the work that they do, the Public Works, the Fire Commission, the police. We are blessed in this township with the staff and resources that work for us every day. And I thought it's an opportunity today to acknowledge that. Also have a question on the payables. There's a Patriot flag, $333.71. Would someone tell me about the Patriot flag?
I would assume, I'd have to check the invoice, but I believe that's for the large flag out front.
Ah, very well. That makes sense. Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else?
With that, I'll move for approval of consent agenda.
Okay. Motion to approve the consent agenda by Mr. LaFever. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Weaver. He beat you by a hair. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 4-0.
Yes.
Okay, up next, we have the Pantone rezoning adoption consideration of the ordinance. So my understanding, Mrs. Pfeiffer, is that we can either take action on this tonight or we can take action on it at our next meeting.
Correct.
Any discussion from the board on what we want to do? Do we want to take action tonight or would we like to wait and think about things for a week, 2 weeks?
Mr. Chairman, I would move for moving a decision on this to our next meeting in 2 weeks, which is April 2nd, I believe.
6.
April 6th, thank you, that's correct.
Any other discussion? I'm fine with that if that's Mr. Bennett.
I'm fine with that also. I think there's a few issues that I think we should address if we can and try to resolve. And I think we can do that in the next 2 weeks.
Okay. Mr. Weaver, you good with that?
I don't know if 2 weeks is going to make a whole lot of difference, but if the other two members would like more time, then I'm in favor of that.
Okay, I'm in favor of that too. I guess at this point, since there's two members that want to wait till the next meeting, do we need to make a motion on that or?
Yeah, I think you should make a motion. I just want to make sure we're clear. Are there concerns that you'd like to see addressed in the next 2 weeks? Or is it just simply you'd like some time for consideration of all the public comment you received this evening?
I have no concern, so I'll let the two that.
I would like to see a much more comprehensive presentation on what can be done with traffic and the traffic at that interchange. It is clear that this is a major consideration for the township, and this project is definitely a major component in how that will go forward. So that's my primary concern. The area is ag holding primarily. It is designated for future development. We are limited in what we can do to restrict that. But for this project to function well, the traffic must be addressed, in my opinion.
Mr. Bennett, did you want to make a comment?
The only comment I made, and again, I know we're in the early stages of this, but I do have some issues with stormwater, and in particular, I don't believe I heard the petitioner even reference the Chickies Creek and the floodplain there. And again, they like them to have maybe some additional discussion with staff about, preserving the Chickies Creek area there and doing what we can, obviously, to reduce flooding.
So we're clear, we did close the hearing. So the next meeting would not be an opportunity for the petitioner to present anything more to the board. So this would, deferring a decision until next month gives the board an opportunity to consider revisions to the ordinance. If the revisions are going to be significant based upon the comments and the presentation you heard, then we need to start over with the new notice, new hearing, new adoption. So I just put that out there. So we're clear. This is a little bit different than continuing, a hearing on a conditional use where perhaps the applicant comes back with more information.
Okay. And one of the other issues is we do have a supervisor that's not here tonight who probably would like to weigh in on this as well. Now that I think about it.
I do think the applicant's counsel would like to address them.
I think, we would be fine with that if the board needs some more time to think about it. Absolutely. We want you to be comfortable with your decision. I would only add that as to stormwater and traffic details, those will come in with land development plans as that process is carried out. And we'll work with township staff, DEP, PennDOT on those issues. So they will be fully vetted. It's just usually the zoning needs to be addressed first before we can move into that part of the process.
Thank you. So for everyone who's here tonight, we will make a decision at the next meeting. And did you say that does need to be a motion?
No, you can just defer on a decision until the next meeting.
Okay.
That's fine.
So that you have some expectation of when we're going to be deciding. It will happen at the next meeting. Folks, before we leave, I just want to say I really appreciate how respectful you were this evening. I know change or these kinds of things not very popular, and it can raise emotions. And I just feel I'm appreciative of the way you guys conducted yourselves tonight. I do want to say, as we sit as a board of supervisors, almost always we're guaranteed to make no one happy. And this is going to be a situation that's going to be like that. The property that we are talking about, whether it's this development or not, will one day be developed. Make no mistake. There's 10 acres right now that could be developed by right on that site that they could put in that meets the CBC zoning that we have. So again, this property will be developed at some point. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Ag holding is specifically for future development and not agricultural farming. So with that, I thank you very much. We're going to move on to the rest of our agenda. And you guys are welcome to stay for everything else that we're going to go over. So up next, we have the Sunoco Redevelopment 520 Centerville Road. Waiver request and final land development. Mr. Hain, is this you? Who's taking this? Okay.
Good evening. I'm Alex Peel with RGS Associates. With me this evening is the owner of the Sunoco, Khalid McGall, and as well as Jared Neal from Traffic Planning and Design. I don't know if you would like me to go over the plan. This is a project that actually the board has previously seen. We did submit this as a sketch plan. Essentially, the design has stayed the same. We have made some tweaks through the review process with the township. I can proceed as you wish. I know you've had an evening of presentation so far. So however you'd like me to proceed.
Are there any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Levere.
Yes, sir.
I don't recall addressing before, but Centerville Road is scheduled for significant widening.
Correct.
How's that going to affect your entrances? Have you allowed for that additional width or whatever?
Throughout the design process, Jared in particular has been in correspondence with PennDOT and the township regarding the widening project for Centerville Road. So all of the design improvements that have been proposed for the project along the frontage have been designed consistent with the proposed widening project.
Thank you. And there is control that all traffic wanting to go northbound will need to go south to the adjoining property.
Right, so
Oxley.
yes, northbound, that is correct. So there's an existing entrance where I'm pointing here that will be removed as part of this project. The northern entrance here will be modified. Currently, as you noted, it's a full movement drive, as is the existing one that's being removed. This will become right in, a right out, and a left in into the property, but there will not be a left out in this location. There is also an existing access drive that will be retained to the south. That connects to the Heritage Hotel access drive. And that is where any northbound turns would be made from.
Mr. Weaver,
I think I've
Mr.
Seen it before, so.
Mr. Bennett,
I don't believe I have any issues. It looks like a good plan to me.
Thank you.
okay, what's your pleasure, board? I guess first we should open up to the audience. Are there any comments or questions reference to the plan? Mr. Rope, can you come up? Go ahead.
The proposal is for an addition on the south side of the existing Sunoco gas station, and that would be for a drive-through use, which would be a Jamba. And the drive-through would circulate from the north to the south. And that would be the extent of the improvements, about a 15. It's for a Jamba, which is, it's a juice, pretzel, fast food type use, yes. It's going to be it's going to be a franchise arrangement, I believe.
We'll have to use the microphones, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
so everybody from now on, no back and forth. Mr. Rupp, if you have a question, we are going to need you to come up to the microphone and ask it, so. Well, no, I understand, but we need you to, for minute purposes. Did he answer your question satisfactory? Did you? Okay.
I'm going to read the motion.
Okay. All right. Is there any other questions in reference to the plan before you? Is there a motion to approve the waiver requests and final land development for Sunoco redevelopment, 520 Centerville Road?
So moved.
Okay. Motion to grant waiver requests 1 through 4 in the DMA letter dated February 25th, 2022, subject to staff and engineering comments.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bennett. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. LaFever. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
We'll have the final.
Oh, we got one more. Yes, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the final land development plan for Sunoco redevelopment Township Plan 21-2202, conditioned on resolution of all the outstanding staff and engineering comments within 90 days of plan approval, unless extended by the board for cause shown, or plan approval will be null and void?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Mr. Weaver, second by Mr. Bennett. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Up next, we have Columbia Avenue, request of waiver of preliminary plan and filing.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman, Supervisors. Brian Coley with DC Gone Associates. Along with me tonight is the property owner, Wilson Hershey. As mentioned, we're here for the sketch plan and waiver request for a preliminary plan. This property located at 2727 Columbia Avenue. If you recall, we were here about a month ago for rezoning a portion of the property from the enterprise to community business. I'll just briefly go over the plan, and then again, the waiver request is the preliminary plan.
I told him you had too many lines on this plan.
I know.
It didn't like it at the planning commission either.
That's good there. Thank you. Just to orient the board to the plan, Columbia Avenue to the south. This is the mobile home park, and then Hurley Industries on the left-hand side. So the owner is proposing a 4-unit townhouse building. If you recall, during the rezoning, that's the area of the existing residential building that was there previously. In addition, we are proposing 3 storage buildings in the back. The square footage total of those storage buildings is 25,600 square feet. In addition to that, there is an existing parking lot that Hurley did own, which is part of this property. It's the intent to utilize the existing parking lot as RV and boat storage in the back. All of these uses are permitted by right in the enterprise and community business center zone. We are proposing a access drive to Columbia Avenue, which will come up the site, access the apartments, provide access to the storage buildings, and then provide access to the existing parking lot in the back. This is served by public sewer. Currently, there's an on-lot well for that existing previous house. It's the intent to extend public water back to the site for the apartment or for the townhouse building. We do have the David Miller letter dated February 25th, 2022. They do recommend approval of the preliminary plan waiver, and we attended the planning commission last week. The planning commission also recommended approval of the preliminary plan waiver. Does the board have any questions for myself or for Mr. Hershey?
Mr. LaFever?
No.
Mr. Weaver?
No.
I did not. Mr. Bennett?
I do not.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience? Mr. Rope? Mr. Rope, could you please come up? Sorry to make you do that, but we need a minute.
I wanted some descriptions I asked you before to explain what some of these things are, to people that don't come every meeting.
Mr.
What's here
Roop.
now? What are you gonna do?
Mr. Roop, he told you that he's working on the existing house structure
Yeah,
and
what
he's building
house?
storage. A house that's there. He explained that.
But what's around it?
I can certainly provide additional details. So currently, we did have a wetland study that was done. So there is a wetland area between the access drive and then the existing housing development. Out front, there was some existing commercial years ago. Right now, it's just abandoned paving and concrete. And there are some existing trees in the center here, and we will try and preserve some of those trees to the extent practical.
So, and this is a redevelopment, correct? You're talking about the pavement and stuff that's out there currently on site.
Yeah, so there was the previous house right around in the location located here. There was also a previous building to the north of that. So we're not redeveloping those exact footprints, but it is in the area that was previously developed and paved. There's nothing happening along Columbia Avenue.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Okay, anybody from online? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to request waiver of preliminary plan filing to approve preliminary plan waiver for 2723 and 2727 Columbia Avenue, Township File 21-05-01 as presented, subject to the applicant recording an approved final land development plan and providing a fee in lieu of contribution equivalent to the preliminary plan application fee? Motion by Mr. LaFever. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Weaver. Did you second?
Pointing at Tom, but
Oh,
I'll take the second.
all right.
I'll give it to him.
All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Up next, we have the Sheets Flooring Mill request for waiver of preliminary plan.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We are here to present a sketch plan. The sketch plan is for a sheets on Flory Mill Road at the intersection of Royerstown Road and Flory Mill Road. The purpose of tonight's meeting for our attendance is for the preliminary plan waiver. This is also just in sketch plan phase at this point. And what we would be asking this evening for is to grant the waiver of modification for preliminary plan. We would be then returning with a final land development plan in the near future.
Any questions? Mr. Weaver? Mr. Bennett?
No questions.
Anyone from the audience?
What's there now?
So the project will consist of a lot consolidation of two existing parcels. On those existing parcels, I do not know this for a fact, but I was told by community members at the Planning Commission, they are car detailing facilities for the auto auction to the rear of the property. Yes. Royerstown Road and Flory Mill Road there. It is off of 283, correct?
Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve preliminary plan waiver for Sheets, Flory Mill Road, Township File 2203.01 as presented, subject to the applicant recording an approved final land development plan and providing a fee in lieu of contribution equivalent to the preliminary plan application fee?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bennett. Is there a second? Second by Mr. LaFever. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
You too. Thank you. State Road Acknowledgement of Petition to amend zoning ordinance.
So I don't believe that anyone is present for that, but we're simply just acknowledging the submission of a petition. The petition is submitted by State Road LLC for their campus zone along State Road and Harrisburg Pike. It deals with changes to building height and also changes to drive-through, allowing drive-through service restaurants.
Is there any
Oh,
discussion?
hello, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Claudia Shank's in the room. She's hiding. She's hiding.
Is there any discussion among the board? Any questions? Mr. Bennett, anything?
Not tonight.
Just an acknowledgement?
Yes, right.
Any questions from the audience? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to acknowledge receipt of a petition to amend the zoning ordinance and to submit a petition to the township and county planning agencies?
So moved.
Motion for Mr. Weaver. Is there a second?
Second?
Second from Mr. Bennett. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Sorry.
Up next, deed of dedication, land needed for Farmingdale Road project from Marlon and Robert Miller.
Mr. Chairman, you missed item F, Marietta LLC.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go back to that. Marietta LLC, acknowledgement of petition to rezone 2532 Marietta Avenue from low-density residential to medium-density residential. Is there
No.
anyone here to?
I'm not sure. I'm not assuming anymore. But it is just an acknowledgement, and we're asking for permission to submit to the Lancaster County and Township Planning Commissions.
There's no one here for it. Is there no one online? Okay.
They've added the second access point, which was a primary concern when it was last before us.
And again, you're looking at a rezoning, not necessarily the design at this point of what he's proposing.
Okay. So what we have before us is just an acknowledgement. It's not the rezoning, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any discussion from the board? Mr. Bennett?
I'd like to move forward with this, yes.
Okay.
Good.
Weaver? Okay. All right. Is there a motion to acknowledgement of petition to rezone 2532 Marietta from low density to medium density residential?
So moved.
Okay. Motion from Mr. Bennett, second from Mr. Weaver. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Deed of dedication, land needed for Farmingdale project.
So this was is part of the Farmingdale project. It is one of 5 easements or traffic signal easements that we needed for land associated with the area around Orville and Good. This particular one, we started with a traffic signal easement. The property owner desired to have a deed, I believe. So what you have before you is a deed of dedication, which needs to be acted on by the Board of Supervisors for Mr. Miller, Marlon and Robert Miller's farm.
Any discussion from the board?
No.
No. Any comments, questions from the audience? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt Resolution 22-10, accepting the deed of dedication for land needed for the Farmingdale Road project? Moved by the chair. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. LaFever. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Up next, the Knoll Dorwart Park Good Drive, authorization to submit DCNR grant application, Resolution 2022-11.
So staff has been working with the engineer and the Park and Rec group, and DMA has designed a park area for the Knoll Dorwart Park. We'd like to submit a DCNR grant for the project. That deadline is April the 6th. What we're proposing is a improved macadam area for the parking lot, pavilion, playground, and a naturalized area to the east that has some park benches and tables. The cost of the project is estimated at $560,000. The DCNR grant is 50% of that. So if this is approved to be submitted, the township would be committing to half of those funds. If awarded, we would have 3 years to complete the project. So that could be spread across 3 years what you see before you in terms of the costs is a phase project, 2 phases, but that would depend on funding. We did put it out on Facebook and Nextdoor. We've had so far all positive comments. We've reached out to Luxwama, and we're also working with the Rotary on this one, as well as Enfield Rec Center.
Any discussion from the board? Mr. Bennett?
No, I think it's a good plan, good design. I appreciate the quick work by DMA, and I'd recommend that we move forward here, go after the DCNR grant.
Any questions, comments from the audience?
Well, I'm Nancy Slough. I live at 2731 Spring Valley Road, not far from the park. And I have been in East Hempfield Township for ever since I got married. Raised my children here. We've been in the parks. They love them. Now I have my grandchildren that have loved parks and have inherited it. And I'd like to put our hats down with all this stress tonight, and look at something more. And I think what I've heard tonight from the audience, we're all concerned about preserving. Well, I think we need to step back and consider this playground. I agree, it's a very nice plan, thank you, on Good Drive. But my question is it necessary and appropriate? What is I have spent so much time at parks. I know every park has a different character, a different reason to be there. And what is the character of this park? What does it provide to the community? What was Noel Dorgwart's desires? I have enjoyed countless hours walking these trails over the last 20 years. The park has changed and has become very popular to people now, viewing through binoculars and cameras, jogging, walking, riding bike, enjoying nature, looking for conversation with others and finding conversation. And also distressing, where I was today, over tonight. My walk in I call it the 100-acre woods, often provides surprises over these years. I've been seeing beaver, fish, fox, coyote, many species of birds, and of course, the deer. I have never experienced the snakes or turtles or frogs, but I'm going to try. Last year provided many special moments I'll never forget. Viewing the courtship of owls, the fawn who was fearless to the world, the bluebird man who spent time to educate me about the needs and the nesting of the bluebird. East Hempfield does have a gem here that needs to be preserved and respected for the assets it provides. Unlike any other park in East Hempfield or near us. School parks have their personality and character. Community parks, theirs, and development parks also have their own. And nature preserves have theirs. Most people coming to Good Drive, I assume, would be by vehicle, being that Good Drive is not the most friendly road to be on. I can list probably 7, 8 playgrounds that they could drive to within that short distance of the playground at Good Drive. Everywhere from Longs Park, Charlestown Road, Her, and the others are within this triangle as schools and developments. My proposal to you is first, preserve this gem and not change the park to something else. Let's clean up the trash in the water and on the land on Earth Day, Friday, April the 22nd. Find time in this beautiful weather yourself. Go for a walk. What do you see? I did this today. Let me tell you what I saw. I saw people of all ages, young, old, disabilities, people riding bike, people jogging, dogs playing. And I also observed fish, birds singing, deer, a turtle. I hit it. I hit one of my three. The parking lot was full. And why were these people here? They were all out to see something that they don't have in their own area. My second proposal part is working with organizations such as the Little Conestoga Watershed, Trouts Unlimited, Ducks Unlimited, to restore the Little Conestoga to being a healthier stream. Third would be no paving or paths of parking lots, but rather let's use this money, create some paths within our township with crushed stone, with connection to communities, parks, and schools. That would be the asset to East Hempfield Township. Fourth, I agree, we could use more pavilions, no doubt about that. But let's look where we can do this and not take up and putting a playground and pavilions at Good Drive, taking that away from it, what we have. Can we put more at Aher Park? I live close to Jacobs Creek. Can we not put one in there? You know, there are maybe other places. How about some of the schools? Can we put pavilions at schools by the playgrounds and the staff can use them for outdoor education? I think this is where we need to look outside the box sometimes. I mean, the plan looks wonderful and beautiful. During Noel Dorwert's generation, there were some great conservationists and businessmen, two being Earl F. Redmond and Amos Funk. One of their visions was to have greenway to the whole length of the Conestoga River. The river is 50 miles long, starting just outside Lancaster County, goes through Lancaster County to the Susquehanna River. Well, they won some of their projects and they lost some. One of the projects they did win was acquiring land, which is now the Lancaster County Park. Let's not change, lose our park. Maybe we need to recall it. Let's call it North Dulwich Preserve. Read the book, Conestoga River Watershed, Outline of History from 1710 to 1973 by Earl Redmond. My prayer is we can only try to preserve this gem in East Hempfield Township for future generations to enjoy. Let's keep this natural and not try to make this like other parks and lose the experience of the 100-acre woods. Thanks. And I'd be glad to help any of you if you would like suggestions.
Okay, thank you.
Fred Knar, 109 Clover Circle. My thoughts went to the same, kind of the same thing when I saw the plan. I pictured a playground in the middle of what is like a serene area where you want to walk and just kind of spend time. That's where I go when I want to be quiet. When I want to hear all the kids and all the shouting and all the cars and all the strollers and all the stuff, I come to Amos Her and I walk my dog. It's a different dynamic. And then I was thinking, boy, if you're going to put a playground in there, you better really expand the parking lot because you're going to have everybody congregating there. So add 50, 100, maybe 150 parking spaces because a lot of people are going to be congregating there for the pavilion. So I think it's an opportunity lost by putting that in there because it's going to change the dynamics and what things look like and what that original intent was for that place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Shay. I live at 979 Milmar Road. And like many of the others said tonight, we use Noel Dort Park frequently. We take our dogs there. And part of the reason why we love it is because of its natural character and that wildness that it offers. If we want to go somewhere beyond Dolnor, we have to go to Talquin Glen or Kelly's Run. And this is the only place close to our residents that we can go that has that same, scenic and feeling. And I agree. I think I did mention this. I commented on Facebook about this, and I think putting a park there would take away from that quality that it's offered. We have seen a lot of wildlife there and birds. I've noticed a lot of people are coming out and birding, and that makes this space so unique. And when you add a park and increase the recreation there, it's going to change that dynamic to it. And I think, yes, like others have said, there's Long's Park, there's Amos which were all recently renovated and, increased, put in new play equipment. And so maybe we could look at, increasing access to those facilities, whether it's, the walkability or the sidewalks to those facilities, instead of creating another play space like this. I think, yes, this park is unique and you should preserve the difference that it offers instead of adding yet another playground. And there are opportunities, a lot of municipalities across Pennsylvania have created joint use or shared use agreements with their school districts and opened up their schoolyards to be playgrounds. So you could look at, there's a lot of case studies across the state that offer that. So looking at that might be a good alternative, but I will agree that the parking lot could be improved. There's, potholes, but I think, I would be opposed to the playground. Thank you.
Okay, any comment from the board?
No.
I just had a question. I didn't realize there was already a parking area there, but there is already a parking area. So that's being paved. We're adding a pavilion and a kids park. So how does that size compare to what we have out here today? I'm just trying to get a picture for how many people might be using that. Is it smaller, same size? It looks like it might be smaller.
It's definitely smaller. It's more in the range of like a neighborhood park as opposed to a community park, which draws from a larger area. The intent for this park would be to serve the area immediately around it. It wouldn't be a destination like the Dream Park is. That's a different type of facility and a different size of facility. And we did take into account too the natural nature of the remaining areas of the park. The only area that's looking for it to be developed is the area immediately adjacent to the existing parking lot. Nothing on the east side of the tree line that you would go through onto Lake Swama's property. From that tree line east is all Solid Waste Authority property. The township only owns a small portion. Basically, the parking lot and the 2 detention basins along Good Drive are all at the township property. So all of the area from the tree line through what is the small non-informal dog park across Farmingdale and then through the woods, no changes whatsoever being proposed to any of those areas. This is just the area immediately adjacent to Good Drive.
And I see that is already grass. And also there will be a lot of trees added to the south.
There's a significant line of buffering proposed to buffer the railroad from the park and the playground area. In addition to, like you said, several trees are being planted in a small picnic area. During the day, if you go at lunchtime, there are a lot of people that stop at this parking lot to eat their lunch or to go for a small walk or sit on the benches or sit in the grass. So we tried to accommodate people that use it in that way now. And again, the pavilion's not like the pavilion that you would see at a park where you might rent it for a larger birthday party or family reunion. It would be if you're at the park, you would maybe sit under it and eat your lunch or take a break while your kids are playing on the play equipment. It's not a destination pavilion necessarily.
So I'm thinking it seems like a fairly minor impact in an area that really isn't natural even now. And I also know like Lancaster County Central Park does have a lot of wild nature areas, but they also do have a skateboard park and soccer fields, and because I used to work for the county, so there are different uses there even in that park. So I just feel like it's not a big debit to the natural area. So my 2 cents.
If I may, first of all, I'd like to thank the individuals who spoke tonight. on behalf of the park. We need to hear from the community when we try to develop these parks as well as improve them. Our attempt here was not to change the character of the park or to really change the use of the park. We just were trying to come up with some ways in which we could make it more useful for the people in the neighborhood. And again, I would stress, we don't really want to change the natural aspect of the park, and we didn't think that we were doing that. But I think everybody made good points tonight, and we're sort of between a rock here as far as the DCNR funding is concerned. I guess we really can't go for the funding with this plan and then change it. Is that permissible?
Depends your definition of change.
Well, again, we some of the concepts that or suggestions, recommendations that were made by DMA, we did have a natural aspect of some of the climbing activities, using wood, logs, those kind of things that sort of fit in with the character of the park. With less reliance on what we would call, let's just say, traditional jungle gym park equipment and activities.
We did take a more natural approach to the equipment, but it is a playground at the end of the day. We actually downsized the number of parking spaces. I think the original proposal was 65 spaces, and we dropped it down to 45 just because there wasn't as much impact. We looked at adding a dog park, just didn't have enough space.
There would be flexibility in that pieces of equipment sort of within that play area could be substituted one for another. Once you make the submission to DCNR, and if you were granted the funds and you want to move forward with, you need to keep the general intent of what you were looking at. But obviously the play equipment could be substituted. We have some graphical representations, and we looked through catalogs to come up with those more naturalized pieces. So that's what the pricing was based on in order to go forward with the grant application. We needed some basis for that, but those items could be changed some.
So the footprint here, what we see here in terms of the areas that we're going to improve with the buffering, the parking lot, the pavilion, that's generally not going to change. The only thing perhaps that we would change would be the type of equipment.
Correct.
Equipment. I like the look of this. The fact that we're putting in, more trees. And again, we're not really changing anything that goes on here, or we're interrupting any activity that was brought up by any of the residents here tonight. I'm hopeful that we can move forward with this. I'm going to make a recommendation that we go for the DCNR funding, and if we've got to tweak some things here and there, we'll do that. But again, our intent is not to change the character of the park or what goes on here. Thank you.
An impression that I left our group meeting was that this park would have some handicap facilities and be a little bit less intense maybe than the Aher Park. So it might lend itself better to those that want that type of facility.
Correct. This would be much less intense than what the Ahern Dream Park and all of the other amenities that the Ahern Park provides.
I think you're talking maybe 7 or 9 pieces of equipment.
Correct.
Were proposed. This is all, I mean, there's no water sewer at the park now.
There's a pad for a portable toilet, which I think you have there now during at least the on-season times. So we would just formalize that slightly. We didn't mention during the presentation, but to the north of the area, the lighter colored 2 strips along the stream, we are proposing to naturalize a little bit more and improve that section of the stream, and to improve the pathway as it goes through and across the stream. Often in spring or wet times, that path gets very inundated with water. So we're hoping to make that a little bit more passable, either with a boardwalk or with some additional drainage, so that when you are making that loop around the path, you can do it. We also looked at possibly cutting or pushing back those invasives that have grown up against the path of that area. Those need some control. That would be done as part of the work along the channel.
I guess this could be a stretch too, but if you get the kids there to the playground, then you might be able to get them to keep going and check out the woods too. So it might actually be a way to get them exposed to nature. But like I said, that might be a stretch.
All right. So I guess I want to thank you for your comments too. Sort of took me back a little bit. We're proposing improvements to the park, and never thought of it from that angle, that, you know, some people might not like it for certain reasons. I think for me, when I break it down, there's an existing parking lot there that does need to be improved. We're planting a lot of trees. We're putting out some picnic benches, and again, so they can benches so that people can eat lunch, a small pavilion. And again, I don't see it interrupting what's there now. I just see it as an enhancement to what we already have there, but that's me.
Call for the question.
So I think if we could be brief, go ahead, come on.
Well, I do appreciate, like I said, I think it's a very nice plan. And we could do the landscaping, and yeah, maybe we could put the pavilion in and the benches. I would ask paving the parking lot stays stone, keep no paving. And I don't think we need the playground. I mean, people do go there for lunch. I can understand having a pavilion. I don't think we need a playground, because there's no way. I understand what you're saying. It's a great opportunity for the children to learn wildlife, but we know they're not going to stay on the path. We know the parents aren't going to control them. And the animals, the wildlife we see, like I've said, I've been there 20 years when nobody was there.
Okay.
I could see the deer in the lawn and everywhere.
Thank you.
They've learned. So the wildlife will learn to move on.
A few more comments. Yes, the invasives there are an issue in the parking lot, but so why aren't you using like funding or maintaining maintaining what you have now instead of adding yet another space that's going to have to be maintained? And, the grant will help create this playground, but then it's going to require resources to maintain it. So you could use those resources to maintain what's there. There are already white pines all along where the railroad is, in between the parking lot and the railroad. So the addition of trees, you could definitely add more. Where the playground is, it is lawn or turf now, but put a meadow in, instead of a playground, and then that'll help reduce stormwater runoff and, MS4 regulations for Lancaster. And maybe instead apply for interpretive educational signs along the path, so you can engage children and families as they walk instead of the playground.
Thank you. Okay, I think we've heard from everyone. So at this point, we have a decision to make. What's the pleasure of the board? Do we want to move this? Do we not?
mean, I think we could do, I don't think it has to be paved. I mean, some of those and the invasives and signs, they're all good ideas. So if we could work that into that plan. I mean, how do we handle invasives now? Does our staff do that?
Depends where you're talking about invasives. I mean, that area there, yes, you have invasives near the detention basins, which are in the further north end. Where we're proposing the changes, I don't think it's basically lawn. Staff will maintain the basins. If the invasives are necessary to remove, they will remove them, but generally, there's not a whole lot done. We're not environmentalists in terms of staffing. We're public works crews.
I kind of like having, I understand all the discussion, and if we could try to incorporate some of those suggestions into the plan, I would be on the side of being for it.
Okay. Mr. LaFever.
I believe we should move to determine if we can get the grant or not. If we cannot get the grant, then we would definitely need to reconsider.
Okay. And Mr. Bennett.
I feel the same way. I think we should move forward, on the grant, again, with the understanding that we're not trying to change the character of the park or how the park is utilized.
Okay, well, hearing that, then is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. So motion to adopt resolution 2022-11, authorizing staff to submit a DCNR grant application for improvements to the Noldor Park Improvement Project.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Bennett, second by Mr. LaFever. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. And I do appreciate your comments. Thank you. Up next is old business. Anyone have any old business? Any new business? Okay. Traffic Commission report was a very light Traffic Commission report. We spoke briefly about Spring Valley Road and asked Chief to relocate some of the speed radar signs into an area that would make more impact. Manager's report.
So Centerville Road, Church Street, they're all kind of stagnant right now. Not a whole lot going on with those. Old Roystown Road Bridge, I see activity. That's a let date of 4/28. Farmingdale Road, I had, as I mentioned earlier, 5 easements and rights of way I needed to obtain. 4 of those have been obtained and signature and file. There is one that I need to reach out to again. She was contacting her attorney. Once that's done, then we can submit the plan to PennDOT and keep moving that forward. We talked about the Noldor Park, the Man Stream Project. That's something new that the board has not seen. If we can show the mapping there. The Man property is near where the sheet store is proposed on Flory Mill. It actually surrounds the auto auction. There's a group that has come in and desires to improve the stream, do some repairing and buffer improvements. They basically want to make the creek fishing accessible. And they presented this to us. They will be eventually looking for support to file for grants. And I just bring it before you to give you information on it.
Have they talked to the property owners and received their approval?
The property, you have an agreement with the property owner, yes, with it, which is the Mann family.
Okay.
I mean, Scott knows more about repairing buffers and stream restorations, but it sounded like a very interesting project.
It does. And they've done a lot of homework. They were well informed in what they need to do. And he said, I think I was a little surprised. It is one property owner really that encompasses all of the area that you can see as being colored on this map. it'll be a long process. Looks like it may be staged even in several stages until they can get through and get this money. We did look at the funding sources they were going after. They were not the same as some that the township are going to be going after in the next round too. So we wouldn't be, often you don't want to compete against yourself for grants. So we checked on that too, to make sure that wasn't the case.
So this is just really for information. You'll see more of this as we move along. The next one is the Little Conestoga Blue-Green Corridor. That's repairing buffer improvements for the corridor from Columbia Avenue to Marietta? No, Harrisburg Pike. Sorry. This is funded by the,
Isn't this Women's and Babies up across Harrisburg Pike on the Shriner Road?
yes,
And
Shriner Road, yes.
Yeah.
And then it goes down through the Conestoga.
Will we not need a pedestrian crossing where if the trail crosses there at Harrisburg Avenue and Good Drive?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
because that would become a trail
yes.
crossing.
So the reason it's on my manager's report is that the Blue-Green Corridor, Steinman Foundation, that group has come to us and said, we realized that there was a problem with the trailhead being proposed at Swar Run Road and Shriner Station Road. And the better approach would be taking LGH's offer to create a trailhead at the location of West Roseville and Good, which is where the daycare was at one point. So that's where that trailhead is going. But then in conjunction with that, they looked at the little section of emergency access road that we obtained from Mennonite Home between Harrisburg Pike and Shriner Station. It's a 50-foot easement. And what the foundation would like to do is get the approval of the board to actually put a trail on that macadam area. They have talking to John Souter with Mennonite Home. They are favorable and support the project. It does require a legal document of some sort to get that accomplished because it was specifically given to us for a public right of way. So that's the emergency access point there. Mr. Schultz and Mr. Good are on Zoom if there's any questions, but essentially it would be on that 12-foot existing macadam path. And there would be a crosswalk at Harrisburg and Good to get people across. I'm not quite sure what they would do when they get to the end, other than maybe turn around. Mr. Schultz maybe has some insight on that. But once you get to Shriner Station Road, I guess you could go to Park City across the covered bridge or just simply turn around.
Talked about the underpass that we learned about under McGovernville Road. Wouldn't we not tie to that pathway?
At this point, the Blue-Green Corridor project would stop at Shriner Station Road.
Okay.
Now, that could be a future addition and extension.
Not very long if it only goes there.
Well, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Yep. So commissioners, supervisors, just want to let you know that this trail, this is only one section of a trail that would start at Marietta Avenue and go all the way up to this area. So my point is it's 2.5 miles. What we're doing is we would like to, as you just indicated, going after funding from DCNR, we would like to go after funding from DCNR in the same round coming up on April 6th. And what we would do is create that trailhead that was indicated with Lancaster, with the Lancaster General Hospital, and then bring the trail up into this area and use this existing right-of-way to extend the trail up into this area. But this would be only one portion of about 3 portions. This would be the beginning of it, but there would be 3 portions of trail about 2.5 miles long. And so what we've, as is indicated, we've been in discussions with John Souter at Mennonite Home, and they're prepared to work with your solicitor to in fact do an amendment to your deed of dedication here to allow us to be able to use this as part of the trail.
That's seeking the input from the board, if they're willing to at least consider that. The document that needs to be drawn up would come before you at a board meeting for review. But if the concept is something that you'd be interested in, we can move forward on that.
Mr. Weaver,
Trails is good.
Mr. LaFever, Mr. Bennett.
It sounds like there's a long-term plan here also, short-term and long-term. So it's be something I'm in favor of.
Do we need a motion or is it just the nodding of the heads?
You don't need a motion. We'll just move forward and you'll have the document probably at your next meeting.
Okay, very good.
In addition to that, while I have your attention on this project, Mr. Schultz also pointed out to me that they are going to be seeking DCED money, Department of Community and DCED. Thank you. They are going to be seeking supplemental funds from DCED. And that grant requires a submission by a municipality, not a private entity or nonprofit. So at some point in time, they will be seeking, if the board is willing, to serve as the conduit to submit that grant. And if there's.
There would be additional supplemental money from DCED on top of the monies that we would receive from DCNR, not to confuse you with all the acronyms.
If there's any objection to that, I probably should know it now before they move forward. But if that seems like a doable situation, we'll keep moving forward on that path.
I'm fine with it. Mr. Weaver.
I'm fine with it also. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Schultz, you have your answers.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that response.
The few other things, personnel, we lost or we are losing our part-time planning administrative assistant. We're seeking a replacement for her. And we have also advertised the position of Director of Planning and Development. In terms of planning report, the signed ordinance still is moving through the process of the commissions, the planning commissions, and should be on your April 20 agenda. We do have 3 new zoning amendments initiatives that we are putting forth, and we'll be showing them to the planning group at some point in the future. It's called the Farm-Based Business Proposed Amendment, which is in connection with the Stoner Farm project and his needs to have something changed to allow his composting facility to continue. The second one is the affects the zoning hearing board decision proposed text amendment. It addresses the time limit and time extensions. And this is a request by the zoning hearing board to make those amendments. And then lastly, the home-based business impact amendment corrects some abnormalities in the, I don't know what HBB, I wrote that. and don't even know this.
Home-based business.
Oh, thank you. It's getting late.
Yes, it is.
With impact section of the zoning ordinance. And that also was a request by the zoning hearing board. 3 other additions. Wendy's, the text amendment has been filed, so that you'll be seeing before you to acknowledge. It's 2532 we talked about, and I also need unfortunately an executive session after the meeting tonight to discuss a legal matter. Last thing, just to note, we did have an executive session after the last meeting regarding a legal matter. And that concludes my report unless there are questions.
Hearing none, can we move on to public comment? Is there anyone here that would like to speak about an item that was not discussed? Well, I gotta give it to you guys for staying to the end. Thank you. Anyone online? Okay. All right, hearing none. Our meeting is adjourned at 10:07 p.m. We will head into executive session and we will not return. Thank you.
Hey, uh-oh, what do we do?
Comment on Zoom. Yes, he said that as Scott was finishing up, and I didn't want to interrupt, so I sent it to you in an email.
Oh, thank you.
Did he? Public comment? No,
You didn't
it
have
was
enough
not.
meeting? You want to meet more?
I said that when we
Never enough
talked
meeting.
today. Nope.
did not.
They did get a copy of it. Mhm. Yep, she had it queued up.
Okay. Again, it's really only been as, I'd say last few months, and it's.
Nice to meet you.
Right. Yeah, I would say it's more of a, like, he could get snappy before, but